This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Simulated racing can be awesome, but it can also be kind of a free-for-all. Interestingly, Simulated racing can be awesome, but it can also be kind of a free-for-all. Interestingly, auto racing faced the same problem in its earlier days. Whether it was on the back roads, the beaches, or the city streets, the racing was always fun. But there was always a certain level of chaos or danger, until some folks came along and put some order to all of this. Stuff like official racetracks, regulations about weight and equipment, and enforcement of standards. That's what gave us high-speed excitement, fast-paced action, and photo finishes. That's when racing became racing. The guys over at iRacing.com have made the same transformation in the world of sim racing. See, iRacing analyzes the performance and results of each driver in every race, so you can be sure you're always placed in races where the competition will be tight, and that those reckless drivers who ruin it for us all will be kept in the pits. Not to mention that with members in over 130 countries already in their vast community, you can find races day and night, so you can always get in the action. You can even join a league of your favorite series, and work your way up to one of 7 world championships, offering over $500,000 in prize money. And since updates are always automatic, you don't have to worry about software and can focus on the track. Zip up your fire suit and check out iRacing.com.
Months ago, we crowned a Classic Indycar Series champion here at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Today, just 12 months later, it's crunch day for the championship. Anything could happen. Matt Cook is still at the head of the championship, but Josh Chin cannot make a mistake. From now on, he has to run the championship stake-free to make sure that he can bring home that championship win. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the iRacing Esports Network and to RaceSpot TV. Myself, Jack Stars, alongside Randy Chenworth, bringing you all the action from Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. The next round in the Classic IndyCar Series Championship. 200 miles of racing here, Randy. Mid-Ohio always puts on a spectacular show.
That it does. One of the crown jewel racetracks in America's heartland out here in Ohio. Definitely out here in the Midwest, and sort of an iconic circuit for the Indy cars. That long back straightaway, of course, going to be your really soul passing opportunity, but as we'll see here in a moment, it's otherwise a very, very difficult racetrack.
And well, as all season long, there's only one driver we let you show around all of the circuits that we use here in the Classic IndyCar Series, and that is, of course, Josh Baird.
Welcome to Mid-Ohio for the IndyCar Ministry 200 Track Tour, brought to you by Robert Grosser. Turn 1 is the fastest of the turns. We will only have to let off slightly to get the car to rotate into the turn. Timing is important to make this turn correctly. Going down the first long stretch, we will prepare ourselves for the keyhole turn or turn 2. Here we will brake very late as the hill will assist in slowing down the car to get through the wide hairpin turn. This stretch will be the only good passing opportunity to take before the roller coaster that begins afterwards. We will reach speeds of nearly 170 miles per hour before braking hard into turn 4. Turn 4 and 5 are a winding S-bend. The apex is over a hill in 5, making the car slightly unstable for setting up turn 6. Turns 7 and 8 are extremely difficult in this car, as it will get upset by the bump as you apex over turn 7 and head into 8. Heading into turn 9, we will push the car to keep to the outside of the track and avoid the bump that will upset the car going down Thunder Valley. Heading toward turn 11, we will let off the gas to make the car rotate to set up our entry into the carousel. Braking late into the carousel, we will apex late since the turn tightens up. Going through the final bend, turn 13, we will have to be careful jumping back into the throttle as there is a spot that will upset the car if we're not careful. This has been an IndyCar Ministry 200 track tour brought to you by Joshua Baird and Robert Grosser. I hope you enjoy the race.
The IndyCar Ministry 200 here at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course is brought to you by IndyCar Ministry. It is the official pastoral care for the NTT IndyCar Series, the Road to Indy, and the Mazda MX-5 Cup. And we're focused on building relationships within the IndyCar community by serving those involved with the love of Christ. The IndyCar Ministry is not for-profit, non-demotional organisation that provides at-track services, counselling and support in times of crisis for the IndyCar community at every race, as well as at home. IndyCar Ministry is supported entirely through donations from our racing community, and we invite you to partner with us. Visit our website, www.indycarministry.org, like us on Facebook, or subscribe to our YouTube channel to see what we're all about. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to RaceSpot TV and to the iRacing Esports Network for the next instalment of the 2019 Logykal Classic IndyCar Series. You've just seen what this track has to behold. Qualifying is currently underway, and the drivers are just putting in their final laps. Just a few guys out on track at the moment. And at the top of the times, Randy, it's Mr. Josh Chin.
And I don't think that's much of a surprise, especially to have out here on these road courses. But he's not out by very much at the moment. For some reason, our graphic is not allowing us to show you that for some reason, so we apologize for that. But he's only got half a tenth over Yoni Kaijin right now in qualifying in these final 2 minutes. And Robert Grosser not very far back as well. So while it's definitely a quick time for Josh, it's not like super comfortable. His teammate Jamie Wilson currently on track at the moment. He's got a current qualifying time of 1:09.0. Not surprised to see Jamie on the pace, as he's been trying pretty much the whole entirety of the past 2 weeks to get up to speed in that new TCR touring car we have, as Neo pre-quali happening today as well.
So some busy times for some of these drivers who could be doing double duty today with that Neo pre-qualifying. We've had some events going on over the weekend, of course, in other series kicking themselves off. The Winter Endurance Series starting to get themselves going. But back focused on here, it looks as though everyone is starting to complete their final few laps. Matt Cook in fourth, of course. We've got to talk about the championship, Randy. At the moment, Matt Cook is ahead by 118 points over Josh Chin without drop weeks taken into account. With drop weeks taken into account, Josh Chin is a little bit closer. However, he has used all of his drop weeks through his mishaps that he had at the start of the season. Matt Cook is in a safe position with his drop weeks and can potentially have a few mistakes from here until the Indianapolis 500.
Well, I mean, that's the great thing for Matt right now, is that with Josh having used up all of his drop weeks, he can, if there's ever a situation where Josh is sort of leading a race, Matt can just put a lot on the line, and he can start, really pressure Josh and maybe even force him into making a mistake, which we've seen Josh make several times this year already. So while it's definitely a nice, situation for Josh that he's still close with the drop weeks, like you said, one little mistake in the remaining handful of races we have left going on this year, one mistake can be the difference for Josh between going into the Indy 500 with any sort of chance at this championship, or basically just not having a chance at all.
And the Indy 500, of course, is going to be a double points race. It's going to be a big 500 miler to round off the season. Including today, we have 4 races left in the championship, and of course the qualifying will happen a week before the Indianapolis 500. They're going to be doing a proper qualifying procedure, including bump date, so keep your eyes out for that one. That is going to be an exciting no points awarded for that though, which is going to be interesting. Qualifying has come to an end, and we can take you through your starting grid. pole position with a timer with a 1 minute 7.450 is going to go to the driver of Josh Chin. Alongside him on the front row, going to be the driver of Logykal. Robert Grosser and Matt Cook will line up third and fourth to make up the second row of the grid, with Lucas Leville and Sasha Lamb making up fifth and sixth. Team Yami is going to start seventh. Jos van der Ven is going to be starting eighth. Watch out for him during today's race. He's found some pace over the course of the season. He's also the reigning 60-plus Adventures champion, so he has pedigree in these single-seater machines. Hugo Hernandez is going to line up at ninth, and Randy Shoemake, quiet season so far for him, is going to be lining up on the end of that top 10. Christian Richter going to be starting at 11th, Hans Pickenen in 12th, Franz Josef Stumm 13th, Marshall Stanley 14th, Jan Hoffman 15th. Jamie Wilson is going to be starting down all the way down in 16th, Johnny Garrett 17th, Josh Baird 18th, Mike Gulliker 19th, Caleb Weakley 20th, Andrew Aitken 21st, and Andrew Adair Saunders is going to be 22nd. Carsten Brobby is going to be lining up 23rd, and the last driver to put a qualifying time in, Todd Novosad, is going to be lining up 24th. Two non-qualifiers today. One is going to be Tristan Hauser, the other one is Jonathan Diggs. We will have to wait and see if they take to the grid. And in all of that, Randy, we've got technical problems again for the driver of Jamie Wilson.
Oh,
this happened
no.
last time out, and it's happened again.
He is going to be triggered. I'll just put it that way. He is not going to be happy. He's already gotten back in, so depending on what's happening with the grid, he might be able to get here and onto the starting grid, because they're going to have about another 20 or so seconds, I think, available to them, but it's going to be mighty, mighty tight for Jamie Wilson. I think at least this time it's not happening on an oval. And actually something to talk about here as well, Jack. They're doing something a little bit unusual. They're not doing the typical iRacing start. They're doing this like the real Mid-Ohio racetrack does and going down the back straightaway. That might allow the sim might actually release Jamie in time that he can tag the back of the field. And instead of having to start, say, half a lap down, he might be able to get back out there on the racetrack and tag the back half of the field as the field begins to roll off towards the ever illustrious carousels. They're difficult around this racetrack.
Of course, yes, as you mentioned, the start here is a slightly different procedure. Of course, at Indianapolis, we should be doing a three-way start. I will probably eat my words on that one come November the 3rd. But everyone now going to be working their way through. We're not going to get the green flag when it drops. Everyone is now going to form up into side-by-side formation. And now we're going to be able to see if Jamie Wilson, he is sat in the car on pit lane. So it is possible that he could get himself onto the grid. It just depends on how, bearing in mind that Josh Chin is the pole sitter, I have a feeling that he might back up the grid enough to get Jamie Wilson going. He's rolling off of pit lane, so he's going to be able to tag onto the back of the field and get himself started in this race. So while it is a little bit of a hindrance for Jamie, he hasn't got to drop himself to right to the back of the pack and then half a lap down, Randy. He can take the start from the back of the grid.
Yeah, and so that's definitely a good thing for him, and at least he's still going to be unhappy. He's lost a lot of spots, but really actually not qualifying that well today. He only lost out about maybe 8 or 9 positions overall. But regardless, here comes Josh Chin taking us down the back straightaway, and we're getting ready to go green for 89 laps around Mid-Ohio.
As everyone heads themselves up towards the starting gantry, the starting point will be just after this little cutoff 4. Cutting, we're green here at Mid-Ohio. Josh Chin gets the jump, and he gets a good jump at the front of the field. He's already pulled 4 tenths over Logykal, and everyone else behind starting to fan themselves into single file. A little bit of 2x2 as we head into turn number 4 for the first time. A little bit of side-by-side between Jos van der Ven and the driver of Team Yami. Hugo Hernandez getting involved in that one as well. This is for 8th, 7th position on the road. And as everyone gets themselves nice and cleanly through the first few corners here, Randy, we're racing at Mid-Ohio.
Yep, and through the S's for the first time. Now you get to the back end of it and down this quick short shoot in towards the carousel. That's going to be so fast. Flat out through that right-hander. Bit of a lift and a drag of the brake to get through the left-hander here, that kink. And then into this carousel that there's going to be a couple different lines drivers have to work with here. And into the first lap coming in already. And it's going to be Josh Chin with a nice start of this race. 0.8 of a second out in front. But remember, he's been making mistakes all season long. So while he might be clear at the moment, it's definitely not something to consider over and done with just yet, as Logykal will try to keep up that pressure.
And that pressure has to be applied, and if it is applied to Josh Chin, it is possible that he will make mistakes. We've seen it before and no doubt we will see it at some point during the season. Hopefully not, because for Josh Ginn, I really do hope that his second half of the season does go a lot better than the first. This is starting a lot of crucial points that could put him closer to the front of the battle. We are a lap and a half into this 89 lap race. 2 stops will be needed here today, Randy, but 200 miles in distance. The fuel isn't going to be the worry. I have a feeling it could be the tyres, because looking at the track temperature, it's hot.
I mean, that's just a summary of this season, isn't it? Is that it's going to be hot, 111 degrees Fahrenheit, 44 degrees Celsius for these guys out there on the racetrack. So yeah, it's a pretty warm session for them. Definitely going to be really big about tire conservation. You're right about the fuel. I mean, in the briefing that they gave us, the admins basically said there's absolutely no way, not even for Joshua Chin, that you could somehow, some way turn this into a one-stopper. So shouldn't see any fuel saving here today. Everyone's likely going to be going as hard as they can, as early as they can. And this man right here, Josh Chin, already out to a great start here, out by a full second over Joni Kajanen already.
And that gap continues to grow, looking a little bit further behind. We've got a train running from 3rd down to 8th, taking in most of the top 10. However, they're all pretty close. It looks as though as we head down towards the mid-pack, we could have a little bit of side-by-side going on. We'll keep our eyes on that one. The mid-pack always usually shows some good racing here at Mid-Ohio. Very tight, twisty course, and it really does separate those who understand this car and know its tricks from those who don't. And that is really going to be where we see some of these drivers really excel here today. Maybe Jamie Wilson up 5 positions. He's side by side currently with the driver of Andrew Aitken as he heads himself through turn number 6. And he's got the move done.
Yeah, so I mean, this is the thing that's going to be nice for Jamie, just with the way that this race happened, with them opting to try to emulate real life start on the back straightaway, something the simulator does not currently do. It means he's only lost grid positions. He hasn't really lost, half a lap like we saw when he had the issue out at, which racetrack was it? Gateway, I think, is where he
Gateway.
had. Yeah, when he had his issue. Yeah, he lost about a lap and a half, and apparently there was some sort of timing issue as well on top of that with the sim. That meant he lost a lot more time than just that. But you see Jamie's going to get the run here on Andrew Adair Saunders up towards the keyhole, and Andrew not really going to fight it. Lifts out of that early. Actually, a bit of a stack up with, I think it's Carson Brody behind because of the way that he checked up a bit early. It was Andrew Aitken in the 27 that he got stacked up with. But regardless, Jamie's already threw up a couple of spots, and now at this point, he's only down about 3 spots from where he would have been. And I have a suspicion that Jamie's going to get quicker and quicker over this race. What have you got?
It's just behind Jamie Wilson into turn number 4, China Beach. Andrew Adair Saunders. Sideways, good catch though from the German. A really good bit of driving there, Randy. Maybe a little bit too far back on the brake bias, but that could have very easily taken the driver of Andrew Aitken out of this race.
Yeah, definitely could have, and we'll get another look at that as we'll get the replay as he comes out of the keyhole, trying to maintain that slipstream with Jamie Wilson. Let's see, down this long sort of back straightaway off of turn 2. We had a quick moment of it. The replay went exactly to when he had his moment of oversteer. And right there, like you said, I think maybe a little bit too far back on the brake bias. Maybe a little too aggressive with the anti-roll bars as well. But right now, this sort of back group is actually really, really closely contested and tight on one another. The 27 trying to get by as well. And there he goes. 27 of Andrew Aitken will roll on through and down the back straightaways. Wilson now working on Mike Gerlica.
Down to the inside as they head themselves through. That right hand kick down this back straight goes Jamie Wilson. Looks as though he's got a little bit more straight line speed advantage. Going to hold the defensive line into China Beach. However, he is going to be able to hold that decision, and instantly his eyes are going to be averted forward to the battle for 15th. That's between Josh Baird, Johnny Garrett and Caleb Weakley. Very close between these 3 guys. Spotted it about half a lap ago. Keeping my eye on this one just to see how this battle develops.
Yeah, this is a fight you definitely need to keep an eye on with the way everyone is right now out there on the racetrack and these early goings. Like we said, the temperature a little bit hot. That means drivers might be a couple different strategies on what you're going to do with the actual tire pressures. And it's opening 6 or 7 laps. Tires still going to be getting up to temps. Should just about be there now at this point. The next lap or so, you should have your pretty much your tires already up to temp and should be good to go. But this is going to be the last couple minutes of drivers probably struggling with the tires as they start coming up.
We are now onto the 6th lap of this race. The tires, as you say, are going to be starting to bring themselves into their optimum working range. Johnny Garrett Eyeing up a move on Josh Baird for 15th. Nothing going to come of it. Johnny Corrette did have a little bit of a moment a couple of laps ago through turn number 1. Ran a little bit wide, got into the gravel. Lost a bit of time because of it. We've got a spinner down at turn number 4. It's Franz Josef Sturm. I have a feeling that may have been on his own. It was, but there was contact from behind. Tristan Hauser went to go to the left-hand side of the racetrack to avoid the spinning number 34 machine and just couldn't get there quick enough. Randy, a little bit of damage now by the looks of things to that number 56 machine.
Yeah, an unfortunate little incident there for both of those drivers. That's going to be, I think, some pretty big damage on both of those race cars as they work their way around this racetrack. And not really a racetrack, Jack, that you ever want to have difficult situations with the damage. It's just so hard to work the S's, and especially down that back straightaway, but especially from about turn 3 all the way to about, turn 8, turn 9, once you get down towards Thunder Valley, and then even then, 11, 12, and 13 all difficult as well. If you get a little bit of suspension damage, get something tweaked in that front or rear end, it's going to be a very, very long uphill day for the remaining better part of, 80 some odd laps we have to go around here.
Yeah, there's a lot of places on this circuit. We've got a car off. That looks to be, it's Marshall Stanley, the number 25, losing it on his own as he came over the top of the hill at turn number 5. Very light touch with the tyre wall there, Randy. Doesn't look as though there is much damage to that machine. However, that's not what he wanted, losing quite a lot of time in the opening stages.
And we're going to get a replay on board with him right here as we're working down the back straightaway coming in towards China Beach. China Beach, not actually the corner here at turn 4, 5, or 6. It's actually the sand trap that you can't really see, and 4, 5, and 6 kind of go around it. So let's see, he gets up to the top of the hill. It's a little bit of a bite of oversteer before that, and then I think he actually just set that right rear tire. We're rerunning the cameras one more time just to look. I think he set that right rear tire right on the curb when he picked up the throttle, and that's why that car actually went around like that. And it's one of the things you have to be careful of here, Jack. You don't want to get too hot when you go into that corner at the top of the hill. It's easy to do, and yep, I think that's exactly what happened. You kind of want to keep it really tight as you crest that hill and steer clear of the runoff there on driver's left and driver's right, as we now look at the fight for third between Robert Grosser and Matt Cook. It's within a second.
He's back to the front to the field. Matt Cook, we usually see leading the way, being very competitive on road courses. Started competing in them at the tail end of last year and has done all of them this year. Has been very quick. Marshall Stanley spun it again at the same place. But we'll keep our eyes on this battle for third position. The number 34 as well is on pit lane, the car of Franz Josef Sturm. So deciding maybe that today just isn't his day and deciding off of the racing surface. But this battle for third is, as you say, Randy, within a second, just 7.5 tenths splitting the two. Last time around, Matt Cook and Robert Grosser with identical lap times.
Yeah, so those two really close to each other, and I think maybe reeling in Joni Kajanen ever so slightly. Nope, I take that back. Joni definitely opened the gap up there 2 tenths, but it looks a little smaller now at the start of this lap, so maybe Joni making a slight mistake. But regardless, P2, P3, P4, all relatively close here on the racetrack. There's less time separating second through fourth than there is separating first through second at the moment, as Josh Shin is doing what he's done several times on these road courses here, Jack, and that's opening up a big gap here early. But we've seen previously, like we've been talking about all season long, it's not the first time we've seen Josh open up the lead. He's opened them up several times this year and thrown them away as we got cars on pit road. Marshall Stanley.
Yeah, Marshall Stanley's been down onto pit lane, so maybe deciding that he's either got a little bit of damage or needed to do something to his car, make a few adjustments in the pit stop, but he's out and away, a full service for him. That could...
I think he's going to have to 3-stop, isn't he?
He is going to have to 3-stop. I was very quickly trying to work it out in my head. There's no way that he can do this race on one more stop. So for Marshall Stanley, it is going to be a 3-stop race for him, so he's already on the back foot, right to the back of the field, and now it is going to be a comeback drive for him. 25 seconds to the next car of Todd Novosad.
Yeah, so he's going to be well down the order. Probably had damage on that number 25, like we talked about. Right now we watch Timo Isin-Yemi, another one of the Vortex drivers, trying to chase down that 42 of Sasha Lamb. They're tucked pretty closely underneath each other as well as they head through the end of Thunder Valley into this left-hand kink and into the carousel once again. So battle starting to ebb and flow already as we're going to be about a third of the way through this first fuel run.
themselves across the line to start lap number 10. That time around, looking at the lap gaps between the two, it was 2/10 faster for Sasha Lamb. So having a slightly better lap, 4/10 of a second, split the two. Sasha returning to the Classic IndyCar Series after making his debut last year, or the year before, sorry. He's been a regular in the Classic IndyCar Series, didn't compete the start of the championship for this year. But he has decided to return for the second half and having a very strong run here in these races. A very quick driver is Sasha, of course, the brains behind that Talk Freak Racing team, which we see quite a lot on the iRacing Esports Network, Randy.
Yeah, you're right. That organization really has been around, and actually, I mean, I think that's one of the great things about this Classic IndyCar Series. A lot of teams that we see in other sort of forms of motorsport around the sim, we see them in here. We see the teams like Vortex. We see the teams like Team Chimera, which we often see in the endurance stuff, and teams like Torque Freak Racing as well, with Sasha Lamp currently behind the wheel there, and P6 running. I think probably has a teammate somewhere else as well up and down the field. But it's great to see those sorts of organizations that you didn't always typically see in IndyCar popping in. So it's good to see Torque Freak up here today. I remember way back in the day running in one of the old Torque Freak leagues when they did that about 6 or 7 years ago. That was a lot of fun.
That was a long time before my day on iRacing. Talk Freak Racing, clearly one of the teams that has been around for a very long time. The same with Vortex Sim Racing.
I think they predate the sim.
Yeah, I think they do. Because I know Team Chimera do as well, don't they?
Not in the name, but sort of technically.
Yeah, the team does, but the name doesn't. We've got a spinner, and it's the driver from 9th position. It's Jos van der Ven, having an issue down at China Beach. And he's just gone wide through turn number 4, lost the rear end just a little bit. That was a very slow motion spin, I have to say, from Jos van der Ven. Got an impressive spin as well, but definitely not something that he wanted to happen, knowing that he really does have pace here today.
Yeah, so he's going to be really frustrated with that. He's really the first driver, I think, that was inside of a really good contending position to make a mistake. Everyone else has been relatively smooth and just logging laps as our fight between P3 and P4 is really closed up. Matt Cook well and truly in the slipstream on Robert Grosser, and we'll see out of the run out of the keyhole if they can make anything of this going down in towards turn 4. But as first driver in the top 10 we've seen make a difficult mistake here today.
And it isn't going to be the last. We've also got apparently a bit of an incident down at the carousel, and that it was involving, by the looks of things, Randy, quite a number of just 2 drivers. Caleb Weekly's gone wide and he's gone back across the track, couldn't quite save the car, and well, Mike Gerlicher had nowhere to go there.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. We're going to be getting a replay of this up on screen right now. Have the camera pointed at Caleb Weekly. Incident hasn't happened just yet on the replay, but we'll see exactly how this panned out. And oh yeah, into the kink, just way too fast, and he spins out there on the racetrack. And Mike Gerlicher, well, he did his best to avoid, but very hard to avoid a car spinning like that. So just a bit of a pile up there, and that's what's so difficult about that left-hander there, Jack, is you start getting into a rhythm. Maybe you even get a little bit of a little overconfident and overzealous, and you just sort of make that mistake, miss your braking marker into that quick left-hand kink, and it's very easy to find yourself out there on the grass. And as well, we've seen a couple drivers, struggling with the brake bias and locking up rear tires, and that's another corner. When you lock up a rear tire going into some of these corners, and especially that one, it's not fun, and it is an entertaining battle, to say the least, to keep the car underneath you and in one piece.
And Marshall Stanley has managed to catch the driver of Todd Novosad and get himself past. Todd really not quite on the pace here today. He's about 4 seconds slower than the next fastest guy ahead of him. So hopefully for Todd, his day will improve. He can find some pace here around Mid-Ohio. It really is a technical course, and there are some drivers who really do struggle around here, Randy, because of just how technical this place is.
You're right. I mean, it is. Well, we're right on board with Matt Cook here as he sort of starts the lap. And in terms of technical stuff, it starts out with turn 1. You're going to want the aero here. It's sort of more of a lift and not a lisp. That's my voice has a lisp, but slight drag of the brakes. Turn 2 as well. You start getting it as the shadows are freaking out with the track surface. That's great to see. But off of turn 2, those first 2 corners, Jack, relatively simple, not that crazy, not that technical, but it's this run into turn 3, turn 4, at China Beach, this is when this track just gets so difficult.
And as we head ourselves up into China Beach, you can see this right-hander. You've got to watch the elevation change as well. It can unsettle the car. You're going to get light as you go over the top of the crest there while you're trying to turn. It's where you want the aero, but it's where gravity is going to be working against you, and you're going to lose just a little bit of weight pushing down onto the car. And again, as you head yourself through Thunder Valley, it's a very undulating circuit. Is this one in the middle section? That elevation change really will affect the car more than you probably think, and it can make a massive difference.
Yeah, it definitely can, and the way this track undulates, and it's such a difficult racetrack as well to set the car up for, because typically when you want a racetrack, then when you have a setup, that you want the car to have a lot of aerodynamic grip, you're probably going to be setting the car up pretty stiff, but there's so many corners as well that are just slow enough that it gets the aero off the car. One of the examples here at turn 2 at the keyhole, the aero just, it sort of unloads the car a little bit. You're going just fast enough that you have some downforce, but you don't have tons of it. So you do want the car, to have a bunch of aero on it, especially when you get to these quicker parts of the racetrack. But you also need the car to have great mechanical grip in order to work in corners such as turn 2 we just went through, and turn 4 here at China Beach as well, and at the top of this hill at turn 5, a couple corners throughout this S's section where a mechanical grip is absolutely necessary. And of course that final sector as well, coming through the carousel.
And if anyone doesn't quite understand what we mean by aero, we're talking about downforce. Imagine having a plane wing, turning it upside down. That's basically what downforce does. So rather than lifting it onto the ground, it sucks it onto the track, gives you a lot more grip. It's why you sometimes see cars, if they get air underneath them, it will generate lift and it will flip the car over. We saw a horrific accident at Monza a couple of weekends ago in the Formula 3 race, and luckily the driver walking away with just, well, it wasn't minor injuries, but he's on his way to recovery, and it's happened a lot of times before, Randy. Aero really is important, but as you say around here with the elevation change, it really can make a difference.
Yeah, it definitely can, and it can, like I said, it's very, very easy to get that setup wrong or have something, especially in regards to the mechanical grip, wrong, and really struggle at a lot of these racetracks. That said, we're halfway through this first fuel run, Jack. We're expecting the expected window at 35 to 37 laps. We're working lap number 17, so about another this long before we see cars on pit road for the first time. Seems like it's actually quite long compared to some of the road courses we've done previously this season, but then again, this racetrack, it's relatively short, and a huge chunk of the lap you're not going to be flat out. You only really have, this quick, when we watch Matt Cook, this quick burst in towards Thunder Valley, the run down the front straightaway, the run out of turn 1, and the run, of course, out of turn 2 and towards turns 3 and 4. That's about it in terms of being flat out. The entire rest of the lap, you're kind of working through S's and can really save fuel somewhat easily around this place because of that.
As we see, Mac, this really is the section of the circuit where you are using that full throttle. A lot of straights, a lot of high-speed sections, but also a lot of braking zones, which means you've got to use fuel to get yourselves back up to speed. However, as you say, that middle sector of the circuit, not using the throttle as much, you're using the momentum of the car to get you through the corners. And as we look at this battle for second, these guys have put 4 seconds over the driver of Lucas Seville. The Frenchman currently sitting on his own there, Randy. Behind is going to be the battle for 6th with Sacha Lamp and Timo Sunyemi. But he's just having a bit of a lonely race at the moment, is the Frenchman. He had that win at Pocono, but ever since the summer break, just hasn't quite been there up at the really sharp end of the field.
He's not had a great season in general, has he? He's sort of...
Oh, no.
What?
Oh, no. It's happened again.
I didn't even need to ask you what happened, and I've already got the camera pointed there, and I've got a replay rolling.
So Joshua Chin has made a mistake, and I said at the very top of the broadcast, he cannot be doing this, and he just has. Over the crest of the hill, coming through it's towards Thunder Valley, lost the rear end, slight tap of the wall there, Andy, but he's got damage, he's down on pit lane, and this all of a sudden is the 3-stop race for this driver.
Yeah, this is disaster mode for Josh Chin. I want to get another replay. I want to actually see on board, get an idea. And you know what? I think I actually want the camera pointed this way because I think the issue happened with that right rear tire. It's on the left-hand side of your screen, of course, because we're looking backwards. But I think that right rear tire, you're likely going to see it dip off the racetrack with the way that he gets this big bite of oversteer here coming up. Let's watch and take a look. Actually, no. He just catches the bump wrong going over that little crest and towards that next corner, and that throws Josh off the racetrack. And He's down on pit road, and I don't have any other way to say it, Jack. I think that's championship done for Josh Chin.
I would agree with that statement because this is still down. He's still stopped on pit lane. Only one driver is left now behind him running on the racetrack. That's Marshall Stanley. Okay, he's half a lap behind. But for Josh Chin, he has gone from the very front of this field down to second to last, and he's still stationary on pit lane. Almost a minute now stopped. He's going to go a lap down. He has gone a lap down, has Josh Chin. And all of a sudden, he's back out and away, but heartbreak for the Team Chimera driver. That is surely championship over, as you say.
Yeah, and especially, like you said, talking about this schedule, Homestead, Laguna Seca, and Indianapolis, all that we have left. Yeah, one of those is a double points paying race, but we're now at the point, like we said at the top of the show, Josh has used up all of his now what?
He's just had a half spin as he came round turn number 2, went through the keyhole. I'm not even sure how to react to this anymore because Josh Chin is going from bad to worse, and all of a sudden he's towed back to pit lane. I think that may be day done.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think he likely hit anything, but let's see what happens on the replay here through turn 2. This is right after he re-enters the racetrack on the curb, and he just sort of picks the throttle up too aggressively, and yeah, he's not in a great mood at the moment.
So for Josh Chin, all of a sudden that title is one step further away. I do not have any data as to whether if he didn't finish here today, if Matt Cook would walk away as champion. And I don't think he would because of drop weeks and the double points race in the last
one. Is how far back is Robert Grosser? I mean, Robert was 70 points shy of Josh coming into this. So that was, I mean, that's 190 points thereabouts that Matt had over Robert coming into this race.
And I don't think Robert Grosser is going to be able to overtake the driver of Josh Chin to be able to take second place. I don't think he'll walk away as champion from here today. However, I think the next round Matt Cook could seal that championship. That's not confirmed. I will have to confirm it with the series organisers post-racing once that we are done with this round. But I think Josh Chin may have just nailed his coffin shut.
I think you might be right, and dear, and I'm gonna say here, Jack. I know you've likely seen these turned up. I'm letting you handle this one this time.
Oh well, he's out the car. He's joined us, Mr. Josh Chin. Just take us through what happened, because well, it's got to be heartbreaking.
Oh, a little bit. It was definitely a good shot to win. It was really confusing. It's the spot that I haven't had a wreck in lately, and it just kind of snapped out of nowhere. I didn't put any weird inputs or anything, so I'm not really sure why it happened to begin with, but at least it opened up the race for the lead now, I guess.
Well, you've gone back out. You had a go. You had that spin at the half spin at the keyhole, and were you just deciding that that's it, day done? There's no point in continuing.
Yeah, the left front was up a lot higher than it should have been. The car was just kind of pivoting from one end to the other in corners, and it wasn't really safe to drive that out there. So I'll take the points loss and make sure I don't ruin anyone else's day.
I think that's a fair enough decision to make there, and obviously championship-wise, that does affect your chances at the championship even more. I still think it's possible, but all of a sudden it's a little bit further away.
Yeah, I mean, this was one of those races where I had to make up some points, and I think, a win and Matt finishing in fourth where he's at now would have been a 20-point swing, so it would have brought it within 2 races, but was at 118 back coming in, and I think it's going to be about 160 or so, and I think that's kind of the final nail in the coffin for the championship for sure.
Well, Josh, the floor is yours. Who would you like to give a shout out to today and go and enjoy the rest of the race from the pit lane?
Everyone at Team Chimera, everyone has been real focused this weekend on pre-qualifying for Neo this season. That's gone really well, so I'm glad those efforts have paid off. Jamie for somehow having another disconnect on the grid, and he's up in 12th right now, and we'll try and get him to at least 9th, if not better, if we can.
I actually want to ask you here, Josh, who was angrier, you when you spun out or Jamie when he disconnected for the second race in a row?
Probably Jamie. I was more confused than upset. I'm still more confused than upset, honestly.
And well, Mr. Josh Ginn, another bad day at the office for you, and it's sad to see because I really wanted you to take this battle all the way to the end, but we will have to wait and see as to what the points will show. 66 laps remaining here at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, and up at the front of the field, the driver of Logykal, and Randy, he's got about a second over the driver of Robert Grosser. Matt Cook not far behind as well, so the battle for the lead still very close.
That it is, you know, it's in some ways it's almost cruel. While we lose Joshua Chin, we pick up what has now become a three-way fight for the lead. All drivers within the second half of one another, and all three of them have been some of the most impressive and consistent on the road courses all season. Kainen has shown good speed at times. He's struggled at others though. Robert Grosser, of course, he's dropped off the sort of ultra speed we've seen from him in the past, but always a threat to win. I think every pretty regularly in this championship, and Matt Cook has just been, stupidly consistent all year. So these drivers within a second of one another, 10 laps out from the first round of pit stops. This is going to be a fun one to watch over this next about 60 minutes.
And well, Matt Cook, while we were having a chat with Mr. Josh Ginn, he took the fastest lap of the race. He's faster than the two drivers ahead of him, and all of a sudden the top three now covered by less than a second. He's got 2 tenths ahead to Robert Grosser. Grosser with a tiny lockup, heading himself into turn number 4. And this is going to allow Matt Cook to close up the gap just that little bit more. But Logykal, all of a sudden, he needs to be worried because he knows that Matt Cook is quick. And all of a sudden, the car seems to be coming to him.
Yeah, it seems to be that way, doesn't it, in this final 10 lap or so run. Then Matt Cook has finally and has really started finding some speed here in that 6 car. Of course, he's not just, Yoni doesn't have just Matt to worry about. He has a Robert Grosser to, of course, be more the concern about as well. So they go past that pit entry here, and we'll probably be seeing here on the radios 10 to go till end of stint 1, 10 to go to the end of stint 1. And Matt Cook through turn 1 really keeping that gap close. And doing everything he can to get into turn 2. That said, though, Jack, it's a difficult track to make passes at. It may very well be the situation if you're Matt Cook, and we'll listen as he goes in towards China Beach. He's just sort of settled in the draft of Robert Grosser here. He might be playing a little bit of fuel save here. Even if you can't cut a stop, it's always good if maybe you can cut, a little bit of fuel out in the next stop, maybe jump someone in the pits rather than doing it out there on the racetrack. That said, it doesn't sound like he was doing any fuel saving in towards turn 4.
I heard the tiniest of lifts, but it wasn't enough to be counted as fuel saving, I'd say, for Matt Cook. So
probably more managing the gap.
Yeah, I think that is exactly it. You don't want to be too close, especially through these corners, because you're going to get that dirty air. You're not going to get the air that you need. A little bit of clean air for Matt Cook would have done him the world of good through there. Just giving Robert Grosser a little bit of space as well. Very different line through the carousel for these two drivers. And look at how much Matt Cook gains mid-corner. But Robert Grosser, he can just pull that gap out again on the exit. So Robert seeming to have really good drive off the corner. But Matt Cook maybe just that little bit better at just the start at the middle of the corner.
But look out ahead of them. We just saw it on the TV camera. I hadn't actually noticed this. We'll go to the roll bar cameras. Ooh, yep, a little bit of a slide there from Matt Cook. It's okay, he's got it. But look at all the lap traffic they're coming up on here, Jack. They have the likes of, I think that's Andrew Aiken, or Andrew Adair Saunders, who's out there, and I think Caleb Weekly, just judging by the timing. Tristan Hauser out there as well. They have a big gaggle of lap traffic that this entire trio is about to get caught up in. So this whole, story of managing the gap and doing everything along those lines is quickly about to come to an end, and they're just going to have to deal with race cars as we have one slow on driver's left.
And the slow car on driver's left looks to be the number 36 of Todd Novosad, so he's getting out of the way for the back market for the leaders, of course. This classic IndyCar Series rules states that if you are a back marker, you're getting blue flags. You have to let the faster car through. It's not like the iRacing Sporting Code where that blue flag is advisory. This one, you have to abide by blue flag rules used in the likes of Formula 1 and IndyCar. Make way for the faster drivers. Don't impede them either, otherwise you might pick yourself up just a little bit of a penalty post-race. There's no live stewards, however, incidents are looked at post-race in this series. And still this battle for the lead, still covered by just over a second here, Randy. But Matt Cook really not progressing on that driver of Robert Grosser.
No, he's not. He's still just sort of settled, though, and that's the thing. He's not being over-aggressive, and we've seen Matt do this in the past. He's one that'll just sort of sit there and just wait and wait and wait. So they work through China Beach once again. Robert's going to try to be stretching that gap out, but Matt just looks keen on really just sitting there and just not letting that gap open up anymore. So, or close up anymore, rather. So Matt's just going to sit there, apply this pressure, and probably wait until they hit this first round of pit stop before he probably jumps, and maybe a slight underfill will be in the order as they hit lap traffic once again.
And that lap traffic is going to be in the form of the number 10 machine, so that is going to be Caleb Weekly. Tristan Howes is just a little bit further up the road. Tristan could help these guys, of course, teammate to Robert Grosser, but have a little bit of teammate tactics coming into this one. Maybe try and hold up Matt Cook just a little bit, but it's going to be interesting to see how that one plays out. He shouldn't do. He's always a good sportsman, is Tristan Hauser, and always gets out of the way for the leaders when they come up to lap them, as everyone will now navigate their way around Caleb Weekly as they head themselves off the keyhole up towards the speed trap and towards China Beach for the 29th time. This is where the calculators are going to be going. The fuel numbers are going to be crunched, because it's almost pit stop time here at Mid-Ohio, and a little lock-up for Caleb Weekly. And now he's really starting to hold up these leaders here, Randy. They're all going to be bunched up together, covered by 0.8 of a second.
Yep, this is a part of the racetrack right here. You don't want to catch this traffic, and how is Caleb going to handle this? As I'm dealing with a bit of a cold today, dealing with some coughing, so this is making commentary quite difficult, but here we go, in towards this quick kink, and Yoni Kaizen will just slip through. That's going to stack up Grosser and Matt Cook, though, and not the greatest place, I think, for Caleb Weekly to try to let them through. I probably would have tried to do so slightly earlier, but it ends up working out, and I think it's slightly in the advantage of Yoni Kaizen, but only by a couple car lengths, as we're about 5 laps out from the first round of stops.
For these drivers, shouldn't have much more traffic to deal with now. Just looking through my timing screen, seeing if I can see any other battles than I can. There is a battle for 9th position on between the drivers of Jos van der Ven and the driver of Jan Hoffman. Jamie Wilson as well, looking to get involved in this one on his drive back, or his comeback drive after his problems at the start of this race. He's gone from stone dead last back up to 11th position, and he's now knocking on the doors of the top 10 here, Randy. Clearly not quite having the qualifying pace here today was Jamie, but his race pace seeming to be just a little bit better.
Yeah, that definitely seems to be the case. I mean, in qualifying, Jamie was about 1.5 seconds off the pace. I mean, actually, yeah, that's about exactly what he was. He did a 108.9 to Josh Chin's pole time of 107.4. At the moment, Jamie's about only 6 or 7 tenths off the quickest lap of the race right now, held by Matt Cook at a 108.3. Just did a 109.0, so Jamie has some good speed, and I don't think that would have been, actually, no, I take that back. That was his quickest lap of the race. So as I said, as I kind of predicted, as the race was going to go on, Jamie was likely going to find speed, more and more speed, and that's exactly what's happened, as Jan Hoffman and Jos van der Ven are all over each other as they crest the hill and roar through Thunder Valley.
And for that battle, they are going to be nose to tail just about. Jan Hoffman, very quick driver. Of course, one of the drivers picked up by Logykal Vortex Sim Racing towards the tail end of last year. As they head themselves across the timing strike to start lap number 31. They are going to have a little bit of lap traffic ahead of them. That is in the form of the driver of Mike Gerlicher. So he could play into the hands of either Jos van der Ven or the driver of Jan Hoffman. Between the two now, just half a second. Keeping on Jamie Wilson, though, coming in from behind as they head themselves through the keyhole and out onto this very long back straight.
Yeah, but let's see what exactly happens here. Jamie be rocking that slipstream for both of the cars ahead of him. You see, of course, Mike Gerlicher trying to latch on the back there as well, but he's not part of this fight. And Jamie able to bring in, I think, a car length or so down that straightaway. You see how close he is to the back of that Vortex car of Jan Hoffman as they work through these S's. And Hoffman, big bite of curb there on the right-hand side. All sorts of bouncing coming from this old-school Dallara IR05 chassis, and that is not what the car would have liked. And you can see the way that's opened up the gap to Jos van der Ven. I think Jan definitely lost himself about 3 or 4 tenths and probably lost that speed with Jamie as well, just from grabbing that curb so aggressively.
And that could have caused just a little bit of floor damage as well to that 05 machine. So potentially repercussions which are more long-term for that driver, not just the 4 tenths that he lost going through that corner. potentially as well a little bit slower over the course of a lap due to the fact that that aero is going to be compromised just a little bit. You'd be surprised how much the floor makes a difference in one of these cars, but it really does. You give it just the smallest bit of damage, and all of a sudden you're going to be finding yourself off the pace and really struggling to find that speed that you are able to get with an undamaged floor.
Yeah, you're right. A little bit of floor damage really hurts. That said, looking at the speeds and just looking at the gap to Jamie Wilson going down the back straightaway, doesn't seem like he's got too much damage here this time. So that said, we are now comfortably in the fuel window. So I think I would not be surprised if we have Jamie Wilson maybe come down pit road a little bit early. He's now kind of locked in behind some traffic. The pit window actually really opened up. You could theoretically, if you came down, maybe go for a slightly early stop around lap 17 was the first lap it kind of opened. So we've been in the fuel window for a while. So if you wanted to, you could come down pit road and get yourself out of the traffic. I'm surprised Jamie Wilson hasn't done that. While we've been watching this, by the way, your lead pack is really tightened up. It's gone from those 3 cars separated by about a second and a half to your top 3 all within 8/10 last trip around the racetrack.
So it really is getting dicey for the lead and looking for the battle for second position. Matt Cook right on the tail end of Robert Grosser as they head themselves up through the chute and towards the carousel for the 33rd time. And all of a sudden now the pit crews are going to be getting ready to receive the first cars down onto the pit lane. No one going to choke this early. Not quite at the point where we are going to see drivers down onto the pit lane. It could be that the first driver to come down will be Joni Kynan. Whether the 2 guys behind will follow, we will have to wait and see. I would expect the top 3 to all pit at the same time. I don't think anyone's going to play any mind games with each other on this first round of stops. The second round of stops, it could be impossible.
You're right. That's going to be the big thing. And, how are you going to play the game, and how is this really going to work out for these guys in terms of strategy? It's not really thing is, though, Jack, it's not really a strategy race, is it? It's more of a go out there, go fast, and log laps. Fuel not really a concern. I don't think we're going to see much strategy really play into this at all outside of really, dictating what you want to do in terms of managing traffic.
And that is always an interesting factor with these kind of races, as Randy Shoemaker's got himself past Timus and Yami for 7th position. So Randy Shoemaker having one of his better road course races of the season, getting himself up into 7th position. A good run from him today here, Randy, after we have seen him struggling at some point as Matt Cook chokes. He's the first down onto pit lane.
You said he choked. I thought he was going to be making a mistake here, so I kind of whipped the camera back, and I expected to see that blue number 6 in the wall, but he comes down pit road. He's going to be the first to blink and hit, come down for his first scheduled pit stop of the day. Likely going to be full tires and fuel on board that number 6.
And he is going to be up onto the jacks. Down and away for the 9-second pit stop by the looks of things. Off the pit limiter, he will come and rejoin the racing surface. So out and away is the driver of Matt Cook to rejoin the racing surface. Hugo Hernandez as well, also coming down onto the pit lane. So we've had a couple of cars. We've had 2 drivers now decide that they are going to make their first stop. Timus Nyemi came down just 1 lap ago. So he's the 3rd of the first stoppers in this one. Josh Baird as well, another driver who has just made a pit stop. So pit lane is about to start getting very busy.
Yep, looking at your race leaders right now, Kynan and Grosser, who have yet to come down pit road, of course. And let's see. One comes down, the other does not. So Joni Kynan in pits. Robert Grosser gets good fuel mileage. He'll stay out for an extra lap.
The Robert Grosser going to inherit the race lead here at Mid-Ohio during this first round of pit stops. And Joni Kynan will be running down the pit lane. He is going to pull over to the left into his stall. It is Mark. Stop, up onto the jacks he will go. Get some new tyres, full tank of fuel, and back out and away to rejoin the race he will go. But Matt Cook now exiting the final corner. This could be close off a pit lane. Joni Kynan is moving, but Matt Cook is at full speed. Kynan's on pit exit. Can he hold on to the position? I don't think he can. Matt Cook has got through on Joni Kynan. So if he's gained that much time on Kynan having a very long stop, a 12.2 second stop. So I wonder whether Matt Cook has gone slightly shorter on the fuel in that first pit stop. So Robert Grosser now, it's all about what he can do in this pit lane and the pit stop as to who is going to be coming out into the race lead.
2 seconds quicker was Matt Cook on pit road compared to Joni Kajanen. So here comes Robert Grosser. We have to assume he's coming down pit road this time, and that's exactly what's going to happen. So we saw 8.8 seconds. Oh, actually off on the grass slightly there was Mr. Robert Grosser. I was expecting him to, it almost looked like he was headed towards the wall with the way that worked out. But we saw 8.8 seconds from Matt. We saw it slightly longer from Joni Kajanen, roughly 11 seconds. Now, what does Robert Grosser do? Is he going to split the difference? Is he going to fill that car up? Is he going to go light? 4 seconds down, 5 seconds, 6, 7, 8, and he's away. He has the quickest pit stop of all.
And he's out and away. Where is Matt Cook? Where is the driver of Joni Kajanen? He's behind they're both behind Robert Grosser. So Grosser having the much better pit stop of the three, getting out of the way, but he's gone very short on fuel, I feel. 8.1 seconds. I feel like Robert and Matt are playing the current game. Joni Kajanen probably playing the long game here. Lucas Seville, we know he's classed as the race leader. However, he hasn't yet visited his pit stop. One of 4 drivers yet to pit.
Yeah, so definitely going long here on the fuel. So great mileage coming out from Lucas Seville to go 37 laps. We expected 36 based on our briefing from race control. Actually, no, I take that back. They put 37 in the window, but it's obviously on the long side of things, and Lucas will come down pit road, and he will be out and away here in about a minute's time. See him roll his way on down, and now the fight's going to pick back up for the race lead between Matt Cook and Joni Kajanen.
And Lucas Phil is going to be stopped down onto the pit lane. As this battle for the lead does indeed continue. A little bit of back marker. A few back markers ahead to deal with. The first one for these guys is going to be the 23 of Josh Baird, very respectfully getting out of the way. But Joni Kajanen, all of a sudden, not even a factor in this battle, as Matt Cook having a little look down to the inside of Robert Grosser, trying to make a move for the lead. However, it's not going to happen just yet, Randy. And he's going to be dropping back 4.5 tenths between the two. I think this is a battle that's going to last an extremely long time in this race.
I mean, it basically has already lasted the entirety of the opening stint, and it's working its way already a good chunk into the second one as well. Just been a couple of laps, and I wouldn't count Joni Kajanen out just yet. Remember, he was on pit road a couple extra seconds than these guys. So while he had a longer pit stop here to begin with, he's going to have a shorter one at come the end of the race than these two are going to have. So all he has to do is work this second stint and try to bring this gap down. If he can get latch onto the back of the likes of Matt Cook or Robert Grosser, maybe those two get checked up in some traffic. If he can get there, he's going to be, I think, in a very, very good situation in that 77.
And well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to let you take in the sights and sounds of the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, riding on board with the driver of Matt Cook in second position. Let's take you to some RaceSpot TV fan immersion. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Indycar Ministry 200 here from the Mid-Ohio Sports Course, live on the iRacing Esports Network. Jack Stiles and Randy Chenworth bringing you all of the action so far today. And while Randy, when we left the action, Robert Grosser and Matt Cook were in a nose-to-tail fight for the lead. Well, it's fair enough to say that Robert Grosser just got the pace over Matt Cook. Matt Cook starting to push that car, and in some cases, really push it just a little bit too far over the edge.
He has. We've seen him go off track a couple times. I know one of the onboards I was noticing when he came on towards Thunder Valley, which is going to be this final right-hander at this sort of sequence of corners right here. He pushed wide and nearly had all four tires off on the grass on the left-hand side, and that can be really sketchy to recover the car from. That is really slick out there. Something to keep in mind in this sort of recent stint. I believe Robert Grosser has taken fastest lap honors than he has since coming off pit road. He's taken fastest lap honors away from Matt Cook. So that race leading car of Robert Grosser currently quickest on the racetrack, but a lot of traffic he has in front of him right now. You see the first driver get out of the way. I believe that's Karsten Brogy as they work up in towards turn 2, and that first kind of move is done. But now as he goes towards the S's, Robert's going to have his hands full with the likes of Jos van de Ven and Johnny Garrett out ahead of him.
For Robert Grosser, dealing with these back markers going to be highly important. He doesn't want to lose a single tenth to the driver of Matt Cook, because any opportunity that he needs to get himself back into the race lead or back up to the front to challenge for that race lead, he will take, and he's navigated one. Robert Grosser, the next one is Johnny Garrett, the number 68 machine. Matt Cook actually getting stuck in a little bit of traffic, so could lose a little bit of time here, Randy. However, Robert Grosser is also losing time. That gap is almost back to a second.
Yeah, that gap's come down a little bit as you see Matt, I think, having a slightly tighter response there with the traffic, and one more car he has to get through. So while the gap is down to a second, as I think I heard a car off in the background, and I did, there's been contact between a couple of those back markers.
And I can see some drivers stop. One of them was Jos van de Ven, a driver who was having a good race. He had some pace all day long, and he's just had a bit of a tangle with the driver of Karsten Brodvie. What happened here? Brodvie down to the inside, just unsighted from Jos van de Ven. There was room on the inside, so maybe a little bit of a track out from Karsten Brodvie, and contact was made. Brodvie went round, and Jos van de Ven straight into the wall. I think there's damage on that car, and he is out of the race by the looks of things, taking the tow back to the pit lane. So for that team, in the form of Franz Josef Stumm and Jos van de Ven, really hasn't been a good day here today.
And I think a driver that actually lost out quite a bit of time in that, Jack, was actually the 77 of Joni Kajanen. I think he was sort of in a situation that he had to lift out of that to really avoid that incident. Now that gap, he was, very much a part of that lead fight. Remember, even before the first round of pit stops, and even after, with him taking, of course, that longer first stop than anyone else, we'll bring that back up. It's 11 seconds stopped in pit lane versus the other two cars in front of him that were 8 and 9 seconds respectively as they sit in first and second. He's now finding himself 6 seconds back off the cars he's dealing with. Not a great situation if you're Joni Kajanen trying to fight for a race win.
And for Joni Kajanen as well, longer pit stop is going to hurt him, but for just dropping that limit. He doesn't want to lose too much time because he's not going to gain back 5 seconds in a pit stop. He has to get it back on the road. Hopefully that slightly longer stop means that he can go deeper into this stint, take a little bit less fuel next time round. We've got a car around in the S's, which the leaders are now going to be getting to. It's Caleb Weekly. He's also taken the toe back to the pit lane by the looks of things, Randy. And again, just an unfortunate mistake for the number 10 machine.
We're starting to see some of these mistakes form up, and actually, I think he hit. Oh, nope, I take that back. Never mind. Had a bit of a disconnect there, desync with him. So, yeah, through turn 4, he's just off the racetrack, and yeah, he just sort of he kind of re-enters at the silliest point to do so. He kind of drops off where he tried to rejoin the racetrack, was right at the apex of the corner where you would be dropping off the curb, and he just sort of lost the car because of that. Somewhat lucky he didn't get tagged by someone who was coming through. So yeah, unfortunate there for Caleb, but that might be very well the end of his day.
And I have a feeling that that's going to be the case. That driver still down on the pit lane taking the toe, so he's going to lose about a lap and a half because of that. And then, of course, going to be losing even more time from that. With 42 laps remaining after the completion of lap number 47, we are now past the halfway stage in this event here, Randy. 100 just over 100 miles down, just under 100 miles to go, and it could be anyone's game at the front of the field. Battle for 8th position as well going on. Jamie Wilson has managed to get himself past Jan Hoffman and is slowly pulling away. So the recovery drive from the pit, Brett, going from good to better.
Yeah, it's going pretty decent, I'd say, here for the driver that's number 87, and I don't think he would have been much further up the field than this at this point had he, not started from the back the way he did. That said, looking at some of the cars in front of him, he's outpacing Hugo Hernandez right now, who is currently sitting in the 7th spot. He's about 12 seconds up the road from Jamie, but Jamie's going about half a second per lap quicker based on the last kind of lap or so, than actually just having another peak. He's sort of matching the driver in 6th, who's actually Timo Isanyemi's around, and he's got big damage as where he would have been entering Thunder Valley.
So for Timo Isanyemi, his day looks as though he's had a bit of a hit as he brought himself through the tail end of Thunder Valley through turn 9. The car looks as though it got loose over the crest of the hill into the tyre wall. He went a hard hit at around 80 kilometers an hour, and that's going to do a lot of damage to those fragile front wings here, Randy. And all of a sudden, Timo Isanyemi, a lot of damage to that number 43. His day is done.
Yeah, and I'm actually, I take that back. I'm not that surprised he would pull it off of the racetrack because, of course, that's going to drop him well and truly down the order, but I figured he would have at least tried to finish this race and get points. That really, Jack, it didn't really look like the sort of hit that was going to do critical damage to the car. He just kind of nosed it into the wall. It's going to crumple the front wing. You're going to have to come down and get a new wing, surely, but I surely would have thought he would have been able to keep going here. So yeah, definitely unfortunate though, regardless for Timo, but for who we were just mentioning, that moves Jamie Wilson up another spot. And, with this, the amount that we have left in the race, people likely going to start struggling maybe with some fatigue, maybe a little bit. Not out of the question that one of these drivers, P1 through 6, make a mistake. Jamie Wilson somehow ends up in the top 5. It'd be an amazing recovery for him.
And as we approach the hour mark in this race, as you say, fatigue might be starting to set in for some of these drivers. Of course, by now, these guys are going to be used to running races which are over an hour and a half in length. But it still does happen, fatigue, especially with a downforce car. It will set in. You will find that across the course of a race, the concentration levels might start to dip slightly. Maybe that's what we saw from Timo Isanyemi. Mistakes like that are so easy to make in a car like this, but also very easy to avoid, and it's just an unfortunate error from him. That battle for 7th position between Jamie Wilson and Jan Hoffman, it looked at one point as though Jamie Wilson was starting to pull away, Randy. However, it is a case now of the lap times are very similar, could potentially start coming back to Jan Hoffman.
Yeah, it could very well do so. Jan definitely lost that position, but he's done well to sort of equalize the pace. Maybe seeing Jamie, giving him a bit of a rabbit to chase out ahead of him has helped him pick the pace up. Of course, he'll have the slipstream down some of these long straightaways you have around Mid-Ohio to work with and maybe helping him manage the gap. That said, it seems like going through the S's, Jamie has sort of started to stretch that lead back out just a little bit as they go up and over the hill that we've just seen Timo Isanyemi drop off and make the mistake at. But definitely, I think reeling that car in is the 05, or at least trying to reel in that 87 is the 05 Ian Hoffman.
And just a few points for Jan Hoffman could be the difference for him in the championship. Of course, Jamie Wilson, another driver not completing a full season here. So he's here just for the enjoyment for the tail end of 2019. Looking at a full season effort for 2020, I would say, for the Brit, getting himself an experience in the car to come back next year and be highly competitive towards the front of the field. And of course, it's a very strong team with Team Chimera, with Jamie and Josh Chin in this one. Of course, Josh Chin, if you weren't here, he was leading the race, and in about the space of half a lap, he no longer was leading the race because of a mistake that he made, a slight error coming over the top of a hill, coming through the sort of in the Thunder Valley section of the course. Randy put himself in the wall and decided that after another half spin that the car wasn't where he wanted it to be. It would be unsafe to be out on the circuit. A good decision there from Mr. Chin. But Team Chimera really this year a learning year, getting ready for next year.
Yeah, I think you're right, and Jamie's showing good pace. His decision to start running this series on the Sundays, I think definitely a good one, and he's picked up some good speed in the cars over time. Remember his first race on one of the ovals, he actually, I think, just about made it to top 5, and kind of, I think, surprised a bunch of people with that performance coming out and immediately kind of firing out there on one of the ovals. If I recall correctly, that would have been Iowa. That would have been his first race out here, if I recall correctly. So he's done well. It's a bit of a mid-season drive for him, and I think he's going to, especially going into next year, I'm not sure if he quite has title contention pace, but he's forming up to be a solid mid-pack contender, and, especially if he can keep from disconnecting on the starting grid, I think he's going to have the potential to fight for wins, not only through the end of this season, but into next year as well.
And the battle for the race leaders all of a sudden got very close once again. Last time around, Robert Grosser losing half a second to the driver of Matt Cook, and as they crossed the line, it was just 2.5 seconds separating the two. It's grown a little bit this time as they head themselves down into China Beach for the 52nd time. And all of a sudden, Matt Cook back onto the tail end of Robert Grosser and challenging for that race lead.
Yeah, you see how tight that margin is right now as they work through the S's up towards turn 6, number 7, and turn 8 coming up here, this little right-hand kink, turn 9, as he drop into Thunder Valley, and Matt Cook not quite as good through that corner this time in the dirty air. You carry just enough speed there through turn 9 that the arrow doesn't really come off the car. You see him a little wide right there as well, putting the right side of the car onto that yellow curbing. So maybe struggling a little bit in the dirty air is Matt Cook just this second, but as they work down this front straightaway, Matt is managing that gap decently well. But we've not really seen Matt Cook have the sort of speed in dirty air that he can show in clean air here, Jack. We've seen, several times he sort of reels in that car in front of him, gets into the dirty air, and he just kind of sits there. I don't know if that's him just, being patient and biding his time, or if he's actually just struggling with that race car when the downforce comes off of it.
That could potentially be the case, and of course, as we see this, it looks as though they're on a bungee cord. They'll get really close together. The gap will extend again. And all of a sudden traffic will play into it. There is a little bit of clear road for the next few laps for these guys. The next big round or group of traffic is currently heading themselves through the carousel. So about a third of the lap up the road. So traffic shouldn't be too much of a problem for these guys. It's all going to be about raw pace, and raw pace at the moment seems to be going the way of Robert Grosser. He just has about a tenth or so extra in that car compared to the driver of Matt Cook, and there's not much which Matt Cook can do about that.
Yeah, you're right, and we are coming up kind of towards the fuel window here. Like we said, 36 laps is, if memory serves, when these guys came down pit road. Maybe actually was it 35? I think it was 35 for Matt, 36 for the race leading car right now. Actually, yeah, that does look like is what it was. No, 34 was actually the in-lap for Matt Cook, so excuse me, 35 for Grosser, and then I think it was 36 for Kajnen, if I recall correctly. So Matt Cook, how do you really kind of look at this here, Jack? Because he came down pit road 1 lap earlier than Robert Grosser, but he was 1 full second longer on pit lane. So is he better on fuel or is he not better on fuel? It's kind of tough to say.
It's going to be a very close call, as we see Mike Logykal apparently going to be bringing himself down onto the pit lane. He's almost completed a full stint. 35 laps remaining in the race. We're now in the window where if anyone stops from now on, they can get to the end of the race. No questions asked on that tank of fuel as Mike Gallagher brings himself down onto the pit lane. The front runners are going to be getting towards the 20 lap mark for the driver, Matt Cook. He's going to be completing his 20th lap on this stint. So in the next 15 laps, we're going to see him back down onto the pit lane. Robert Grosser actually put in 2 laps after Matt in that last round of pit stops, Randy. I don't know who's going to be better on fuel because Robert would have used a little bit more. I think Matt Cook we may see go just that little bit further into this second stint.
I think you're right. It's going to have to, it's going to be interesting to see. Of course, it's going to be a very short second stint. That's also something that you have to consider and think about as well, especially in terms of what's your tire life looking like? How do you run this sort of second half of the race? I think running the first fuel tank pretty much dry makes a lot of sense, which is what these guys all did. But the second stint's a lot more interesting because if you go the full distance, you're only going to be running about 17 or so laps when you come off a pit road. So do you split the difference? Do you run sort of a second shorter stint here and maybe, kind of cut the, maybe make the last stint longer than what it would be if you ran the first 2 full stints full? Do you try to split that difference into this, between the second and third stint? Going to be a couple of sort of interesting ways you can, handle this last sort of 30 minutes of the race that we're setting up for that I think all likely would equalize out about the same.
As they head themselves through the final corner to complete the 55th lap. It's going to be who is going to bring themselves down onto pit lane first. As we see a new fastest lap for Robert Grosser, a 1 minute 8 flat compared to last time around. Matt Cook doing a 1 minute 8.182. Well, his personal best of the race so far here, Randy. So clearly both of them finding some pace. However, still that raw pace is going to go the way of Robert Grosser.
Yeah, it is at the moment, but, Matt Cook in the slipstream is already reeling that gap back down and in. So this might be a quick lap that Matt's on, or maybe not a great turn 1 and 2 for Grosser this time through. A little wide off the exit there for the 6 of Matt Cook, but allows him to really nicely set up that corner at the crest of the hill, working through the S's once again and off towards this final couple of corners here before reaching on the Thunder Valley. Maybe a little of oversteer for Matt Cook. I did hear some tire scrubbing, but I think that is what happened. That gap opens up slightly. But I don't think Robert's actually that much quicker than Matt right now. Yeah, Robert might be getting the honors with the quicker laps, but Matt's not losing ground of that 3 car. Robert's not just checking out into the distance. Matt is managing this gap really, really nicely.
And actually, last time around, Matt Cook was quicker. They both did a 1 minute 8.7, but when you start looking at the smaller values when it comes to time, Matt Cook was just a fraction of a second quicker, even with that little bit of a mistake. So maybe the fortune's starting to change, as you say. They're not really separating out. Robert Grosser, once they came out of the pit lane, looked as though maybe he did have a little bit more than Matt Cook. However, as the tyres have worn down, don't forget Robert Grosser's tyres are 2 laps newer than those on Matt Cook's. And this second round of pit stops is really going to be the difference as to whether Matt Cook will come out in the lead or whether it will be Robert Grosser. I think that Robert Grosser is going to have to pit earlier and have a longer stop for fuel. However, I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult. We've also kind of shifted the cameras back over to this fight for 7th and 8th. Jamie Wilson and Jan Hoffman. They're still close and on top of each other here. So, Vortex cars here, Jack, involved in fights both up and down your field right now. Everyone else on the racetrack really, really spread out there, if not laps down. So it's really just these 2 fights. What have you got?
It's the first driver to come down onto pit lane after this lead battle is Robert Grosser. He's pitting early. He's going for the short games, playing the mind games. So that could explain why he had a short pit stop, but this is also going to give him a short. He's going to fill the tank, but I have a feeling it's going to be another short pit stop. No, it won't. 10, 11 seconds from Robert Grosser. That is definitely a full tank of fuel there. So he definitely short-filled himself on that last round of pit stops so that he can go the 3rd long stint here. Matt Cook, I expect to see. He's either going to come down onto pit lane in the next 5 laps, Randy, or he's going to run this right to the dry point in that fuel tank.
I think for me, thinking as an engineer, if my goal is to try to keep my race car light, I keep Matt out there because he's going to be, on roughly half a tank of fuel right now, where Robert's going to be on a full tank of fuel. And then when I eventually have to come down and stop, I'm only going to have to take about a half tank of gas once again. So I think Matt Cook is actually going to be in a really, really good situation here, just in terms of the fuel load he'll have to deal with. He's going to be in clean air now. And we're going to get a good idea of what the pace is on this number 6 car without the slipstream and him being lighter than that car of Robert Gross that just came down pit road. Would not be surprised to see Matt stretch this as long as he can to try to keep that car light till the end of the race. Not really worried about fuel fill time. It's just actually putting gas in the car and having that car be heavy. I think is going to be the one thing Matt wants to avoid.
And as we also get closer to the checkered flag in this race, it means that Matt Cook is going to have to take less fuel on his next stop. And all that means that he's going to have a lighter car. I mean, both Matt and Robert are going to have very similar weight of fuel left in the car when he comes down when they both exit the pit lane. But it also means that Matt Cook's going to have the fresher tyres, and they're going to be fresher by a good 10 laps if he can run it right to the dry point, right to the end of this stint, Randy. And that could be the difference between who wins this race.
Yeah, you're right. Ooh, Matt, a little bit loose actually working through the carousel right there, so maybe struggling with the handling of that race car, but we're going to get 30 laps to go this time through, so it's kind of anyone's game at the moment as we're inside really the last 40 minutes of this event.
And it is going to be interesting to see how this one develops. That battle for 7th position between Jamie Wilson and the driver of Jan Hoffman still ongoing, still within a second of one another. But at the moment, no advances being made by either driver. However, Jan Hoffman was about half a second quicker than Jamie that last time around the racetrack. That gap just did extend just a little bit there. But watching that battle, that looks to be pretty much a stalemate at the moment between the two here, Randy. Jan Hoffman just holding on and sitting in the draft.
Yeah, so no surprise there. I think these guys are relatively equal in pace. Jamie kind of picked that spot up and has been sort of unable to stretch this gap right back and out. So Team Chimera, Craig's setup shop driver, trying to open up the gap, but not been able to do so. Interestingly enough to me here, Jack, we've not seen any of the Vortex cars respond similarly to what their teammate did upon coming down pit road. Robert Grosser, of course, hit pit road, and he was really the only one to actually do so of the Vortex cars. Everyone else seemingly staying out for this longer game. For this longer stint, excuse me.
Yeah, that's a very interesting game that Robert has played here. It could go one way or the other, as actually Matt Cook now down onto the pit lane. We missed that. He's stopped already. So now we've got to keep our eye on the driver, Robert Grosser, currently coming through the carousel. He didn't run a full stint in Matt Cook, only 26 laps. So he hasn't gone much further than driver Robert Grosser, but he's going to be a second and a half quicker on the stop. He's back out and away. Robert Grosser only now coming into turn 1. The gap between the two, 3 seconds. Or no, it's now 2.5.
Yeah, Robert's going to have a huge pace advantage indoors turn 2, so that gap should have settled down somewhere around 2 seconds. That's obviously not the right margin, as actually Sasha Lamp, I think, technically divides them on the racetrack in terms of position right now. So Matt Cook, that's exactly what he wants. He's able to come down pit road, get off, and come away with the race lead quite comfortably now. We saw Robert Grosser kind of steal the fastest lap of the race a couple times. Can he keep that?
So Matt Cook is going to have. So the tire advantage that we were thinking Matt Cook may have isn't going to be the case, because there's only going to be 3 laps difference between the two on the tire life. So actually, for Robert Grosser, this could still happen. 2.4 seconds between the two as they head themselves into the carousel for the 61st time. They are going to be running full tanks of fuel for brand new Firestone tires, and it is now a pure sprint to the checkered flag as Sasha Lamp is down onto the pit lane.
So scheduled stops coming through for just about everyone if you opted a short fill. One driver that's picked up the speed actually is Jan Hoffman. That gap was about a second last time we checked in before we noticed Matt Cook on pit road. I think Jamie either getting caught up with some traffic somehow or making a mistake. Gap now 0.4 of a second for P7 and P8, which is where they currently sit.
There's Carson Brophy as well, another driver to come down onto the pit lane. Sasha Lamp is out and away, just being overtaken by the driver Hugo Hernandez as he goes around the outside as they head up towards turn number 2. The driver of Logykal now inheriting that race lead from the driver of Matt Cook. We'll wait to see when that number 77 decides to come down onto pit lane. I would expect him to do a full stint, actually, Randy. Looking at the pit stop times for Robert Grosser and Matt Cook the first time round, Logykal was longer than both of them, so he's going to go deeper and maybe have a shorter fill. He is still a possibility in this one. it's still possible for him. He has got a 16-second advantage over Matt Cook and a 19-second advantage over Robert Grosser. So actually, now I think about it, it is going to be tight.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 29-second lane time, and that's with those guys taking a full fill. So the problem they have is the gap between Yoni Kaizen and Matt Cook right now is 17 seconds. And if you just scratch the pit stop entirely, that means it's an 18-second delta just down pit road. So for Yoni Kaizen, as the current pace to where they're currently going, he will come out at least behind Matt Cook, and I think likely Robert Grosser as well, because remember, he's going to have to throw fuel in the car too. So he's got to pick up the pace right here, and he needs to start doing the quickest laps that he's done all race. He is maintaining good pace. Last lap, only about a tenth and a half off his quickest lap of the race, but he needs to find even more than that. He needs to get down towards those 18 zeros that we've seen the likes of Matt Cook and Robert Grosser put in. Going to come around this time, and that's going to just about match his quickest lap of the race, only 0.3 off.
So for the driver of Yoni Kainen, really now is the time where he needs to get his head down, focus on what he's doing, and get himself up towards the front of the field. Jamie Wilson and Jan Hoffman, two drivers who haven't really extended the gap between each other again. It's still around 8/10. Jamie Wilson has got past, but he can't quite get away. The two currently matching each other on pace, and it's going to be a very interesting development in that battle to see if anything will happen. The pit stops, of course, obviously going to play into that one. For Jamie Wilson, after starting stone dead last, 7th is a very good day for him at the office so far. Randy Schubert currently running in 9th, the last driver out on the lead lap of the race. And I think actually for Randy Shoemake, it's worth pointing out, and I did say this earlier on, he's had quite a quiet season this year, Randy. And okay, his teammates with Matt Cook, so he's supporting Matt's championship hopes and his championship fight. But for Randy Shoemake, a really quiet season, hasn't been up at the sharp end of the field, maybe where he wants to be.
Yeah, I think you're right. He's just been he's just not have that edge we've seen Randy Shoemake have in the past. I want to say he won one of these races earlier in the year. Didn't he win, like, Motegi?
He may have done. I know he has won a race recently, but I can't think which one it was.
Maybe Texas. It was one of the ovals. I've been like broadcasting like 6 series thus far this year, so my mind and my memory is a bit mush in terms of being able to pick up on who's won what recently. But he's had some good pace on the ovals typically, so he's obviously always someone to keep an eye on there. But you're right. I mean, Matt Cook, of the Aero X cars, Matt tends to be the one who's the tip of the spear, especially when we end up turning right and on the road courses. Something else I'm sort of keeping an eye on. Jamie Wilson, gap now to P6, only 4 or 5 seconds on the racetrack, and it's only about another 5 seconds up to that next place running car, the 72 of Hugo Hernandez from, Team Independent. They currently sit in the 5th spot as well. So Jamie making some headway up here to get further up the running order. And actually, I take that, never mind. Tristan Hauser in front of Jamie. I thought Jan Hoffman may have got the move done, but I think Jan's just on pit road.
So I'm currently looking at previous seasons in the Classic IndyCar Series, and I can't actually see where Randy Shoemaker's won a race.
Well, we're done.
Yep. So clearly our minds are not as good as we thought they were. But Randy Shoemaker, driver who we have seen up at the sharp end of the field on previous occasions, and I definitely do remember that. It's clearly this year just deciding that he wants to. He's usually around the end of the top 10 is Randy Shoemaker, so that is, he's still having a good season, getting himself some good points, but a quiet day out there on the racetrack, currently starting 8th, according to my timer screens, thanks to the pit stops, because Jan Hoffman has made his 2nd stop of the race. And Jamie Wilson still out on the racing surface here, Randy. He is going to go deep into this stint, now entering his 30th lap.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Jamie's someone who generally likes just strategy-wise going deep on fuel. It's sort of the Team Chimera way. We've done quite well in races in the past doing this sort of strategy. Of course, won the SCO 10 Hours of Suzuka doing just that, really off the back of Josh Chin's ability to save, an extra couple laps of gas and a couple of stints and open up that strategy window for us. So I'm not surprised to see Jamie playing the long game. It tends to be more of a simpler strategy. You don't really have to overly think about it. It's like, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to fill the car with gas. We're going to go out on the racetrack, and then before it stops running, you're going to come down. We're going to fill it up again. Is more or less what a strategy tends to be. So I'm not surprised to see this happening from Jamie.
We have a driver spun down at the exit of Thunder Valley. That's Mike Gerlicher. He's had quite a big impact with that tyre wall here, Randy, and A little bit of damage to that front wing. He's going to have to come in and get that repaired. That driver had already made his second stop. One of the first drivers to stop on this second round of pit stops. All of a sudden, he's got to bring himself back down onto pit lane to get himself those repairs.
Yeah, we'll try to get a replay to see what exactly has happened. We've rewound the cameras a minute from where we were looking at. So you see him working through turns 4, 5, 6. Where did this mistake come in? Probably entering towards Thunder Valley under the Honda Bridge. Let's see, where did this Dallara Iro 5 make the mistake? Up and over the hill. And there it is. Pretty much, you know, that's almost the exact mistake we saw from, who was it? Was it Ice and Yami earlier?
Timo Sinyemi, yeah. So Timo Sinyemi having a very, Mike Gerlich having a very similar issue to that driver of Timo Sinyemi. And both of them now having damage repairs. Gerlich is back out and away. However, he's dropped down to the second to last driver out on the circuit. That last driver running is still the driver of Todd Novosad. Still not quite up to pace with everyone else. Last time around, 1 minute 15 compared to everyone. Basically, everyone out on the track now doing 1 minute 9s, 1 minute 8s. So for Todd, he's sort of 5-6 seconds down on everyone else out on the circuit. We're doing a very good job also to get out of the way as a back marker as Josh Baird now down onto the pit lane.
Yeah, and actually just sort of, you know, quickly talk about the pace coming up. Track's dropped off a couple of degrees. You saw it 111 Fahrenheit at the start of the race and 44 Celsius. It's currently 42 Celsius as they circulate on the racetrack and 108 Fahrenheit. So the track temp coming down pretty nicely for these guys as they get towards the end of the race. I think it might drop another degree or two before we get to the end. We have about another half hour of running, so I wouldn't be shocked if that ends up occurring. But, yeah, so these guys starting to put in some quicker times. Yoni Kaijin's actually been going quite quickly as well. I think he's put down his best lap of the motor race recently, and he did. And a 108.273, quick as he's gone the entire run. Problem is, the likes of Matt Cook and Robert Grosser, they're both kind of mad. Actually, no, I take that back. I saw 109.1 from Matt Cook. I think maybe dealing with traffic. So Matt's put in his quickest time relatively recently, about 15 laps ago, but since filling that car up with fuel, he's not really gotten back down to that point.
It's going to be interesting how that battle develops over the course of the remaining 20 laps. And as well as the pit stops continue to happen, we're going to take you into some more RaceSpot TV fan immersion. We're going to take you for some laps of the Mid-Ohio Sports Car course, riding on board with Sasha Lamb in the number 42. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the iRacing Esports Network and to RaceBot TV, bringing you all the action of the latest round of the Classic IndyCar Series from the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. We're looking at the battle for position number 3 between Robert Grosso and Logykal, and kind of made his second stop while we were away doing that fan immersion, and has emerged behind the driver of Robert Grosso. However, the gap between the two, Randy, just 0.4 of a second.
Yeah, so Logykal actually really well there on pit road. I want to take a look at the pit lane information. You see it right there, 26 seconds on pit lane, 8 seconds was the pit stop time. So managing that gap actually really well with Logykal, able to latch right onto the back of Robert Grosser and be part of this fight for second. That said, Matt Cook, what a brilliant stint from him thus far. He's up the road 5.5 seconds from this duo. So the gap wasn't that big when Matt came off pit road compared to Robert Grosser. It was only about 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds, but Matt's just gone into Ironman mode, and he's just lapping so much more quickly than either of these guys at the moment.
And looking at this, the gap between the two stretched out just a little bit over the course of the last lap. The driver, Robert Grosser, 2/10 quicker than that of Logykal, so a little bit more pace for the German over the Finn. However, there is still a long way to go in this race. 15 laps remain here at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. And anything can happen in that time, as we've seen all year long with the Classic IndyCar Series as they head themselves through Thunder Valley for the 74th time. Down the hill, watch yourself getting on the power there. Don't want to spin those rear wheels up, lose that rear grip and spit yourself into a wall. Two drivers have done that today, Mike Gerlicher and Timus Niemi being the two who have fallen victim to that very easy mistake to make here at Mid-Ohio, as Lucas Laville from the race lead comes down onto the pit lane to make his final stop with 15 laps to go. It's going to be a quick one, but he's not going to be in this battle for second position.
He's taking tires in 7.5 seconds for tires and fuel. It's about as quick as you're going to get. Let's see where he comes out on the racetrack, and actually it's going to be relatively nice, I think, for him, somewhere around P4. I think for Lucas Laville, he should go relatively uncontested in that situation. Couple other drivers, no, I take that back. I was going to say Sasha Lamp might owe us a stop, but he's already came down. He came down a little on the early side about 15 or so laps ago, so Sasha Lamp should be fueled to the end of the race. What about Hugo Hernandez? He's come down and stopped as well. So I think, it's Jamie Wilson's had a spin.
Yeah, I've just spotted that as well. Jamie Wilson, as he headed himself out through Thunder Valley, I was talking about, you got to watch the power. And I don't know what quite happened there, because it was a very big hit for the Brit. But I wonder whether that was an actual just running a little bit wide and losing the rear end.
We're about to find out.
Too early on the power.
What we're about to find out is going through here. And yeah, I think you're right. Just not managing the throttle well, and well, he that's, I believe, the third or fourth car we've seen spin like that. That said, he gets extra points for that spin here, Jack. He's the first one we've had spin off to driver's left. Everyone else has put it in the red wall on the right. He put it in that concrete wall on the driver's left. So at least some extra points. And actually, I'm surprised that Jamie hasn't come down pit road. Considerable damage to that right front wing. I would think surely you'd want to get that swapped out, even though there's only 14 laps left to go. I honestly think coming down pit road is going to be a much shorter time loss than it is to be trying to limp around out there, because he is well down on speed. He's only doing about 160 into turn 4 there, where everyone else is probably, I think, up around 170.
And for Jamie Wilson, this is really going to hurt the rest of his race. It just shows how one small mistake can make such a big impact, especially on these cars. A very fragile chassis of bodywork is this Dallara IR05, as all Formula cars are made out of pure carbon, and carbon is very strong, but if you give it a good enough hit, it will break, it will crumble, and all of a sudden you're going to be in a world of trouble when it comes to downforce. Jamie Wilson's going to stay out. No, he's not. He's going to come down to pit lane, so decided that actually making that pit stop, getting that new front wing, is going to be more time effective, but it is going to drop him outside of the top 10, and it means that his comeback drive is done.
Yeah, you're right. So he's going to be really, I think, frustrated with himself there. That said, from what I understand, Team Chimera's had a decently successful day. I think, likely getting pre-qualified in to the Neo Endurance Series. We've kind of had a couple-year hiatus there, once because, Turned out that I'm slow in pre-quali in the Ford GT a couple of years ago, but that said, fight's still picking up. Kaijinen and Gross are all over each other as they work out of Thunder Valley and in towards the S's. That 77 latched onto the back of that 3 car. The gap, by the way, first to second, it was about 5 seconds, I think, a little while ago when we mentioned this lead, and the fact Matt Cooking on Ironman mode. At gap now will P1 to P2, 7 seconds on the racetrack.
And that gap is going to be pretty much very similar as they come across the line. Everyone's setting very similar lap times, but it might extend just a little bit as this battle for P2 starts to heat up with 12 laps remaining in this motor race. Johnny Kynan into turn 1. He will go right on the tailpipe of Robert Grosser. And all of a sudden, the 3-time champion of the Classic IndyCar Series has got his mirrors full of finish speed.
Yeah, he does. Joni Kaijinen, we've seen this kind of from him a couple times this season. He's usually settles somewhere around P4, P5, but he can oftentimes just sort of pick up that little extra bit of speed and really fight for, these front-running podium positions and even for wins. I think he had a potential opportunity to win this race, but I think the strategy just not going his way. Matt Cook seemed to manage the fuel and tires better than anyone else, but definitely on for a strong run here for second, and a lot of traffic coming up ahead of these guys means that Robert Grosser is going to have to be really picture perfect managing where he puts that race car on the racetrack.
And it's that picture perfect placement of the racetrack that is going to make the difference between finishing second and finishing third, and that is going to be all important. And as the clock will tick down, the time will tick down, and so will the laps, and it's going to be getting closer to the checkered flag every single time these guys come across the line. Of course, as always, Classic IndyCar Series running a 2-hour time limit on this race. However, with no cautions, we are going to be able to get that done probably in the next 15 minutes. We'll be seeing the checkered flag. So the end is in sight for these drivers. It's been a very long day here at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course.
Yeah, it has. 89 laps around this place really does go a while. It's a full 200-mile race distance around this racetrack, so it does take a while. But that said, no cautions. Even though the oval race is the average speed so much higher, Jack, we've seen it several times that you start stacking up yellows and you just sort of end up inevitably, getting closer and closer to that time limit. We haven't had to use the time limit yet this season, have we? Is that going to be a first for this championship?
I think we have. I think we got really close on one round.
Yeah, we got really, really close. But I don't think we... Go ahead.
I was going to say, we won't use it today. We're going to get it done before the end of the time limit. But, yeah, I can't remember an occasion this season where we've used
well, here,
it.
I'll go down the tracks that it would have been likely, because it would have been all ovals. We haven't had it at Motegi. We haven't had it at Texas. We haven't had it at Iowa. And we didn't need it at Gateway. We didn't need it at Pocono. Well, Pocono was because that's a 400-mile race, it was elongated anyway.
That was a 400-mile race that we got in about 2 hours, wasn't it?
Yeah,
that was a
400-mile race that fit in the 2-hour time. So yeah, I don't think we've done so yet. So with what, 2 ovals coming up, Homestead and then Indianapolis. Although Indianapolis being a 500-mile race, that's surely going to be elongated as well. Not sure what the time limit will be.
That's going to have a very similar time limit, I believe.
Is it even going to have a time limit? I would think you wouldn't put a time limit on that. This being sort of their crown jewel event.
I don't know. It's up to the organisers to decide. The closest that we've got to the time limit all season long was at Motegi, where we completed a 201 lap race in an hour and 54 minutes. Other than that, we haven't had to use it so far this season, and I think that is definitely a first for the Classic IndyCar Series for the length of time that I've been covering it, but we've never got this far into a season and we haven't had to use that time limit.
Yeah, so that's definitely good to see for these guys as this gap P2, P3 still stays down around 0.3 of a second. We've, of course, not been talking about this fight, but you've not missed anything. Camera's been pointed here, but really no opportunities for Joni Kaijinen just yet. It's been a really difficult track to pass at here today, Jack. I think guys really having the cars trimmed out. We've not seen any of those big slipstream moments going down in towards turn 4, down and off this back straightaway like you might typically expect. So I think guys, in qualifying you might likely keep a bunch of aero on the car to get through the S's quickly. But in the race, obviously, you need to be quick down that back straightaway. I think guys likely would have trimmed the car out. You see the 77 there of Logykal just squirming on those rear tires up and over the hill. Bit of a wiggle for him, and that's going to drop a little bit of speed to Robert Grosser. Is it just another wiggle as well as he came through, I believe it was turn 8.
Logykal is going to be the driver who's on the fresher tyres. They're 13 laps younger than those on Robert Grosser, and you'd be surprised how much of a difference it will make in this heat, but it really does make a big difference if Logykal can get that little bit extra performance under those tyres over the next 5 laps. It's really going to help him on that final run to the flag. 8 laps remaining here at Mid-Ohio, and all of a sudden this battle for second position really getting hot.
Yeah, you're on. Yeah, I mean, this fight is so close between these drivers right now. Everything else pretty much spread out there on the racetrack, but still some lap traffic for them to work with. They're coming up on Carson Bravati, who we've seen have some troubles here today, but down the back straightaway, he'll likely be seeing the Vortex car in the rearview mirror and probably getting notified of the blue flags any moment now. So expect the lap traffic, I think, to play nicely, and expect the second car in line, Jan Hoffman, another bit of lap traffic there. That, of course, being Vortex teammate of Robert Grosser, and he's likely not going to make life too difficult on that number 3 car. Not saying he'll block the 77, but I suspect there'll be an extra car length given to that number 3 for sure.
And it is going to be interesting to see how that one develops. There is more traffic. Of course, they're going to get a little bit of clean air after they got themselves past Jan Hoffman, the driver of Matt Cook, completely on his own at the moment, out at the front of the field, a 10-second advantage to these guys. So he's got the pace advantage, and it looks as though as well, because these guys are battling, he is being able to pull away last time around. Logykal 2/10 of a second faster than a Robert Grosser to the dot, and all of a sudden, looks as though for the Finn, it's starting to come back to him. Really close as they run themselves off of the keyhole. And the driver, Robert Grosser, ducking into the draft of Carson Bravati just to try and get that little bit of overspeed, just to try and defend that position into China Beach. They will go looking to the inside is Logykal, but no move going to happen.
Yeah, no move going just yet. BC's tucked right underneath that rear wing of Robert Grosser. So any opportunity that presents itself, he's going to go for it. And it might be a situation he's in. He might have to sort of try to slot this pass at sort of a part of the racetrack you might not typically do so. As let's see, through Thunder Valley and up in towards this quick S's section and in towards the carousel. Gap, I think, opening up just slightly in favor of Robert Grosser, but still, watch on the back is Goni, and he might have to throw this move, try to get the run off turn 1, Jack, and try to send it into turn 2. But the sort of speeds these cars do through turn 1, it's actually really difficult to get some overspeed to make that move and potentially even have that be a relevant opportunity in towards turn 2.
Logykal to get a slightly better run through turn number 1 than that of Robert Grosser. He's going to get really close to the back, very close to contact between the two as they head themselves onto this back straight once again. 5 laps remaining at the conclusion of this time around the racetrack, and into the draft will go Logykal, and for the driver Robert Grosser, who's not going to have as much to help to the inside. He will look to the inside, he will try and force a gap open, but no gap going to come of it. The brake discs are glowing into the China Beach in the S's section of the circuit, and Robert Grosser still holding off the Finn of Logykal. However, with every single lap that goes by, Kynan just gets that inch closer.
But is it going to be enough? We've seen him close, but we've not seen him come anywhere close to having an opportunity to get around Robert Grosser, who's just been so perfect. We'll ride on board a little bit, do some, it won't be full-blown fan immersion, but we'll just keep the onboard cam on Logykal, and you can just see the fact that, everywhere that you might think about passing, Robert Grosser just maintains that gap. Through turn 1, no opportunity, not really a passing zone in the first place. Turn 2, we saw the overspeed from Kaizen last time. This time it's not there. In towards turn 2, you see him going to close on the brakes. He's going to look up the inside, but I think that's more just because Grosser kind of took a wider entry into the corner. And look at the run that Grosser's able to get off turn 2 because of that.
So Grosser having a slightly better run off the corner. He was able to get the power down just a little bit earlier by the looks of things, but down to the inside, Logykal will look once again, and I think the gap has been forced open. But just because you got the inside for turn 4 doesn't mean you're going to get a move done for turn 5, because Robert Grosser is able to get back in front, shut the door, slam it hard in Logykal face, and once again will hold off the position. But there's not many more opportunities now for the Finn to get past. He's just got to follow him through Thunder Valley and up towards the carousel here, Randy, because for Logykal, he's got to be very careful. Can't put a move into one of these high-speed corners because he will cause an accident.
Yeah, sometimes it might just be better to just sort of, you're going to want to be aggressive, of course, and fight for that second spot, but, you kind of have to know when discretion is a better part of valor, and maybe say, you know what, here, I'm not going to go through the super, super tight opening that you're giving me. 4 laps to go, which means likely only about 4 opportunities for Logykal in towards turn 4. And as he makes a mistake off turn 1, I don't think an opportunity is going to be there. Again, much wider entry for Grosser in towards turn 2. But Kaizen just can't quite get the overlap he needs. And now Vortex teammate ahead of Robert Grosser, Jan Hoffman, going to be giving Robert a little bit of draft down the back straightaway, and then he will duck out of the way. That's going to take potentially an opportunity away as Kaizen will harass, but he won't get there. But that one little moment there, Jack, of the teammate giving a little bit of slipstream to Robert coming out of the keyhole, that really stole an opportunity away from Kaizen.
That did, and that just gave Robert Grosser that extra kilometre an hour that he may have needed just to hold off to that position this time around the racetrack. Through Thunder Valley they will go once again 3 more times. They've got to navigate themselves around this Mid-Ohio Sports Course circuit. And as they head themselves up into the carousel, a very tight inside line is being taken by Robert Grosser, who wants to try and cover off any move that Logykal could make into that corner, because it is a good opportunity to try and make a move into turn 1. He will look into turn 1. He will duck back in behind Robert Grosser because it's not sensible to put a move in there. You're going to be opening up a gap and potentially one that could cause an incident into turn number 2. Again, a much wider line taken by Robert Grosser, really using that outside of the circuit, maybe with us a little bit less rubber, but he can get the power down. He's going to go down to the inside. He's going defensive, trying to get that inside line down into turn number 4 here, Randy. Back to the outside of the racetrack. Inside will go Logykal. Who's going to break first? It's going to be Kainen or Robert by the looks of things. Side by side through the S's they will go. And I think this one may just go to the driver Robert Grosser, but it's not over yet. Inside line for Logykal and side by side as they head up to the chute. This is never somewhere you want to be side by side because of the bumps, because of the undulating elevation. And through will go Logykal and Robert Grosser. Just not quite got the grip in the tyres to defend that position.
That's what's so great about this racetrack, is that you can run those S's side by side. We get the signal for 2 laps to go as Matt Cook would have seen the popsicle sticks off the final corner this time. Now these drivers are going to be getting it. Now watch this fight for second, because Robert Grosser, who's now settled into third, has been getting the better runoff for turn 2 than Logykal in the last handful of laps. So he might be able to fight back here. The gap's grown a little bit. Kaizen able to separate and is still separating on the run in towards turn 2. But can Robert get the run off this corner that he needs? We'll ride back on board with the German driver. Look at the gap, though, that Kaizen can open up. I don't think Robert's close enough, not even with the draft.
And the draft is really going to help Robert, but he's still not going to be close enough as they head themselves down to China Beach in the S's for the penultimate time in this race. And he is going to get a little bit back, but he hasn't quite got the tyre life left that Logykal does have as they head themselves through the S's towards the jump, towards Thunder Valley for the second to last time. It's going to be Logykal. He has the advantage. I think Robert Grosser may have lost just a little bit too much to be able to defend. It's 6.5 tenths between the two. And for Robert Grosser, I think he might just have to settle for this third step on the podium.
I think you're right. White flag out this time for this man of Matt Cook, as you see him working in towards turn 2, some lap traffic, but he has all the time in the world to navigate it. The Vortex driver of Robert Grosser has seemed to lost the pace over Logykal. 8 tenths of a second right now, the gap in towards turn 2 for the final time, setting up the last potential passing opportunity, I think, for Robert. Yoni, as long as he doesn't make a mistake, he should be safe, and that seems to be the situation. Grosser has to reel in somehow an enormous gap if he's going to fight for it, and I don't think he's going to. Now we're going to shift focus over to this man, Matt Cook, as he works in towards the final sector with a 15-second lead.
Through Thunder Valley for the last time. A little bit of traffic ahead in the form of Johnny Corrett and the number 12 of Andrew Adair Saunders. However, for Matt Cook, he's not going to be able to navigate them in time, and it's not going to be a worry on a day where Josh Chin, it was his race to lose, but he did lose it. Matt Cook is going to make massive strides in the championship to win here at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course with the Indycar Ministry 200. A good point collection today where Josh Chin is going to finish as a did not finish in this race, but Matt Cook, he's going to be able to come across the line in first position. Yoni Kainen held off Robert Grosser in the very closing stages of this 200-mile lap race to finish in second. That was a race of strategy for second position all the way to the last 15 laps, when it was really a race of going as fast as you possibly can. The driver of Lucas Logykal is going to finish down in third position. Sasha Lamp hasn't actually yet crossed the line. Hugo Hernandez is going to be the final car left on the lead lap, but that battle for the race lead and eventually that battle for second position, Randy, it was all done on pit lane as to decide who would win this race, but no one knew who was going to finish second until that checkered flag flew.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And for Matt Cook, you know, he's going to be absolutely ecstatic right now putting in a performance like this. He's going to come through Thunder Valley and up towards the carousel for the last time. You'd think he's still at race speed. This isn't really a cool-down lap. He's kind of hooning it around here on the 90th trip around the racetrack, but he'll come down the front straightaway, and you're going to see that number 6 of Matt Cook do some celebrating.
As well, the revs will rise for Matt Cook, the rear wheels will spin, and the celebratory donuts will be completed. Sprinkles on top, of course, as always included, and we'll be able to take you through your final finishing positions. Matt Cook going to be coming away with the win, a 15-second advantage over the driver of Yoni Kainen, just being able to hold off the driver of Robert Grosser in the very closing stages. Lucas Logykal, the Frenchman, a quiet day for him, going to be finishing down in fourth with Sasha Lamp in fifth. Hugo Hernandez, the final driver, going to be on the lead lap down in sixth. Jan Hoffman, the Logical Vortex Sim Racing in seventh. Randy Shoemaker finishing off in eighth. Jamie Wilson was able to come back to ninth after his mishap and having to make an extra pit stop. Christian Richter going to be rounding out the top 10. Hans Picken is finishing off in 11th with Johnny Garrett 12th. Carsten Broadley 13th. Tristan Hauser 14th. Josh Baird in 15th. Marshall Stanley 16th. Andrew S. Saunders in 17th. Mike Gallagher 18th. Todd Novosad 19th as the first non-finisher. And then Timo Snyami, Caleb Weekly, Jos van der Ven, Andrew Aiken, Josh Chin and Franz Josef Sturm going to be joining the driver of Todd Novosad as a non-finisher. Jonathan Diggs is going to be the only non-starter from today's grid. We're going to step aside for just a few moments here on the iRacing Esports Network. We'll be back with post-race coverage here from Mid-Ohio.
Simulated racing can be awesome, but it can also be kind of a free-for-all. Interestingly, auto racing faced the same problem in its earlier days. Whether it was on the back roads, the beaches, or the city streets, the racing was always fun. But there was always a certain level of chaos or danger, until some folks came along and put some order to all of this. Stuff like official racetracks, regulations about weight and equipment, and enforcement of standards. That's what gave us high-speed excitement, fast-paced action, and photo finishes. That's when racing became racing. The guys over at iRacing.com have made the same transformation in the world of sim racing. See, iRacing analyzes the performance and results of each driver in every race, so you can be sure you're always placed in races where the competition will be tight and that those reckless drivers who ruin it for us all will be kept in the pits. Not to mention that with members in over 130 countries already in their vast community, you can find races day and night, so you can always get in the action. You can even join a league of your favorite series and work your way up to one of 7 world championships, offering over $500,000 in prize money. And since updates are always automatic, you don't have to worry about software and can focus on the track. Zip up your fire suit and check out iRacing.com.
The Mid-Ohio round of the Logykal Classic IndyCar Series for 2019 is brought to you by Indycar Ministry. Indycar Ministry is the official pastoral care for the NTT Data IndyCar Series, the Road to Indy, and the Mazda MX-5 Cup. They're focused on building relationships within the IndyCar community by serving those involved with the love of Christ. Indycar Ministry is a non-profit, non-demotional organisation that provides at-track services, counselling and support in times of crisis for the IndyCar community at every race as well as at home, and is supported entirely through donations from the racing community. And we invite you to partner with us. Then visit our website, the www.indycarministry.org, like us on Facebook, or subscribe to our YouTube channel to see what we're all about. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course with post-race coverage from the latest round of the Classic IndyCar Series, of course brought to you by the IndyCar Ministry. Jack Stiles and Randy Chenworth have been on the call all evening long, and while it was an exciting race, Randy, Matt Cook bringing it home with a 15-second win, and you're stood by with him.
Yep, I am stood by with race winner of Matt Cook. And Matt, what a great run for you all race long. Tell me about it. It started out a little bit quiet for you. You kind of, I believe you rolled off fourth on the grid. You kind of settled into third there early when you had the likes of Josh Chin out there, who was, of course, just, blitzing the field in the early goings of the event. And then Josh made the mistake. You were fighting with Robert for a while. And then that final pit stop sequence really came out and really favored you, and you were just on another level over the course of that last 15 or so laps. Tell me about your day.
Yeah, for the most part, just kind of took it easy during the first stint, didn't really want to push too hard, but I did try to see if I could pull up alongside Robert once or twice, but didn't actually make the move. Honestly, I found it pretty tight once you got in behind there. It's a difficult track to make a pass overall, and my car was definitely topping out going down the back straightaway, so definitely had a few issues, but just kind of took it easy and tried to do an undercut or an overcut whenever I saw the opportunity, and worked in my favor. As soon as I got clean air, it's just I could let loose.
And then talking about your championship situation, you came in as a huge favorite. Joshua Chin had pretty much used up his allotted drop weeks, and we talked about that, the fact that Josh had to be picture perfect from the start of this race to the end of the season, and he didn't. He dropped it off the racetrack about 20 laps or so into the race from the race lead. He ends up finishing well down the order, second to last driver of the driver that actually started the race. So that pretty much kills his championship contention. We haven't done the exact math of if there's if someone gets a witch doctor and puts a curse on you way that you could lose this championship. But I'm sure that if there were Vegas odds on this championship, you surely would be the 99% favorite here at this point. So we can just about crown you champion this far this year. And how does that feel?
Definitely feels pretty good. I know there's still a chance for Josh to come back, but it really comes down to how much does he want it. Overall, he can't make another mistake. Indy is double points. That's the biggest one.
Well, he'd probably have to win all three races, too, even at that, surely.
Probably, overall, but it really comes down to bonus points and how they play out. We'd have to do the math to see how it actually plays out, but even if I didn't finish Indy and Josh had good results overall, that's a pretty heavy hit because of the double point thing.
That is true. It could definitely be something that comes into play, but I still have a feeling that you're in a much stronger situation than I think you realize you're in. But can't say that I doubt, I question the way you're thinking about this. But regardless, Matt, fantastic race from you. The AeroX car looked absolutely stuck to the racetrack all day. Before we let you go, who gets it done for that AeroX organization?
Definitely a great shout out to Randy and Andrew. They put a lot of testing in this week and made sure the car was set up perfectly.
So there he was. Matt Cook comes away with a strong victory and nearly locking up the championship after leaving here today from Mid-Ohio. Next up, we have your third place finisher today. That's going to be Robert Grosser. He just lost out on P2. And, well, Jack, you have him.
Well, Robert, first of all, congratulations on the podium. It was close all day long as to where people would be after that second round of pit stops. Matt Cook seemed to have the jump on both you and Yoni, but that final stint really between yourself and Yoni Kine very, very close right up until the end.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jack. If someone had offered me a podium before the race, or let's say before the qualifying, I would have happily taken it, seeing what kind of drivers were on the grid today. Yeah, obviously when you fight for P2 and finish only, then there is a little bit of disappointment. I was trying to, I knew that I didn't race Matt. He had far superior pace. Okay, I out-qualified him, so I just tried to stay ahead of him, but I knew I was racing Yoni pretty much, so I was trying the alternate strategy. It worked out well. I left the pits just 1 second ahead of him for the final stint. Yeah, and then I don't know, I made an unnecessary mistake into the hairpin, and so Yoni could make a good run on the back stretch. And yeah, we had some nice wheel-to-wheel battle. You clearly can't do this with any driver on the grid, so that was fun. Unfortunately, not with the better end for me.
Well, obviously looking forward to the rest of the season. Just 3 races now remaining. We're going to go to Miami, then to Laguna Seca, then of course the big one to finish off the season, which is going to be the Indianapolis 500. For you now, you've had a good season so far, been very consistent up at the front of the field. Is it just getting those 3 races as good as they can be, getting some good results and seeing where you finish off in that championship?
Oh yeah, first of all, I really want this overall P3, and I know I have to score good points to compete with Yoni, with Lucas, with who had bad luck today, unfortunately. So I can't put the foot wrong in the remaining races, and yeah, I hope I will do well, especially in the ovals. This for some reason I'm doing quite good there, so I really hope for some good result there next race in Homestead. So yeah, we will see.
And well, Robert, the floor is yours. Who would you like to give a shout out to today for Logykal Vortex Sim Racing?
First of all, to all my teammates from Logykal Vortex Sim Racing for preparing a very good car. It was really a pleasure to drive, and then of course to today's title sponsor, Indycar Ministry. Thanks a lot for support. Thanks a lot for having some link to the real world racing now with this title sponsorship today. That was really something very special.
Well, Robert, thank you very much for joining us. As always, congratulations on your 3rd place finish. And next up is his teammate, finishing at just 7 seconds behind, Mr. Lucas Laville, who's going to be joining us now. Lucas, first of all, congratulations, 4th position. A very good result for you. Not quite having the pace to keep up with the guys ahead of you, but as always, a good, strong day in the office.
Exactly, pretty much. That resumes my day. Starting 5th, that was my hope pretty much for the whole race. Like holding up Sasha at the beginning wasn't that easy, but when I pulled off, it was pretty much a day over and just had to bring the car home in one piece. Managed to do 37 laps twice, so that's a good point for me, being able to fuel save like that. But strong day as always, and congrats to Robert for a strong result for the team as well.
And well, of course, for you guys as a team, you're all going to be working together, making sure you can all get good finishes towards the end of this season. We know you're strong on the ovals. You won at Pocono. Are you going to be getting yourself now ready for that Indianapolis 500, making sure that you can bring yourself away with 2 wins from 3 Triple Crown races?
Hopefully, yeah, but Homestead's first, and I'm gonna try to not repeat what happened last time for me at Homestead, which was not even starting the race pretty much. But yeah, the last road track we have is a strong one for Robert as well, so I'm gonna try to help him get some strong points as well for this race and continue the battle between Robert, myself, Timo, and Yoni for P3 in the championship, which is gonna be pretty tight.
Oh, well, obviously from you, who would you like to give a shout out to today for Vortex Sim Racing?
Big shout out to Logykal, our title sponsor for CIS and Vortex Sim Racing as well. Big shout out to the Indycar Ministry sponsor for this race today. Shout out to Matt. Congrats to him for another strong race today. And as always, big thanks to you, Jack and Randy, for another great broadcast.
Well, that is Lucas Phil finishing 4th today in the race. And Randy, looking forward, we've got one road course left at Laguna Seca on the 13th of October. Obviously, we're going to go to Homestead Miami before that. Homestead Miami last year, first round of the championship. Well, it was, as Lucas said, he didn't even start, along with a couple of other drivers. A lot of cautions in that race. But hopefully, when we go there in 2 weeks' time, it'll be a much cleaner, faster race. And as we've seen so far this year, not having to use that time limit.
Yeah, Homestead's a fantastic circuit in my opinion. It's one of those tracks that I'd love to see the real championship go to. It's of course been somewhat we haven't seen it on the championship in a while, or a number of years. I know there's a big fatal accident several years ago, which I think resulted in it getting pulled. But yeah, Homestead Miami Speedway, an absolutely fantastic circuit. Going to put on a great show, but really, I think these last few races are going to be some really interesting races. Of course, Homestead Miami Speedway, as we just talked about. Then we move to Laguna Seca. That's going to be a crazy race, not only in the sim with this championship, but of course we know the real series going back there again for the first time in something like 20 years, I believe. I can't remember the exact delta, but you're going to see the modern cars around that place dropping out of the corkscrew. That's going to be crazy. And then to cap off the entire championship, 200 laps, 500 miles around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for double points. Great string of races to end this championship.
And well, that is just going to be about all we have time for here today on RaceSpot TV and on the iRacing Esports Network. 2 weeks' time, we are going to be heading ourselves to Homestead, Miami. It'll be same time, same place as always here on the iRacing Esports Network. But for myself and Randy Chenworth, of course, before we go, a shout out to everyone who gets it done here at RaceSpot. Twister Van Ballal for our track cameras at trackcams22.com, and of course Simon Grossman over at appengineering.com. Nick Thyssen brought you live timing and storing, as always, available over on our webpage. And from myself, Jack, and Randy, we're going to wish you a very good night and see you in 2 weeks' time.